So with volume 2 being fully wrapped up now, I really wanted to make one huge video showing you guys the full story of the Transformers made by Skybound. And I don't know where I'll put the Energon Universe Special in, maybe in between volume 1 and 2, because I think the actual story takes place after volume 2, but I think I'll just put it in between the two. But going back to the beginning of the story and seeing this massive story and rich writing that Daniel Warren Johnson has written so far, which really makes me want to look forward to volume 3 and seeing how that story will progress. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So where this initially starts off is we see helicopters and a sunset, and then it shows another photo of the Ark crashing into the earth, and then we see a soldier on the floor with, looks like his eye's missing. And then we also see Optimus with his eye missing as well. And you see Dad, wake up, as you see a rocket launch up. And then it kind of just transitions to what we see Spike and his dad, which is very cool. And I gotta say, I was kind of shocked that they were going with just Spike and Sparkplug here. It seems like this whole comic line is very G1 inspired, but with its own take. So it is very cool. But you do see Spike looking for his dad and, asking, hey, where you been? And the dad's like, oh, well, I just got here. I was doing some errands. And, the bartender rats him out. Says, nah, he's been here all day. So, yeah, and they just keep talking. And you see Spike's dad point out that Spike has a telescope and basically asking, why would you want to remember, as it shows a photo of an explosion? And this person they are talking about, Spike, just says, I'm not going to end up like him, Dad. We see Davey coming in, interrupting the conversation as he goes and offers to take Spike's dad to work as they go on for the night shift. And right before they go, you see Spike's dad say, eventually you're going to have to grow up, Spike. And Spike says, and be like you. And they drive off away as Spike's dad, pretty much what it looks like to be ashamed to be a dad, at least for that exact moment. And as Davey and Sparkplug drive away, we see Carly arrive with her really awesome looking van. As she says, that sounded rough. We then move on to the next page where we see it's later in the night and they are going to go stargazing. You see Spike commenting on Carly's van saying it looks really good, and Carly being, I don't know, it still seems like it's missing something, not quite sure what it is. And you see Carly and Spike talk to each other about what seems to be the future, as if I were to take a guess age-wise, I'd say they're probably around in, high school, maybe about to graduate or something, as Carly brings up Spike's future of trying to be an astronaut and brings up how Cal is the best place to do it. Spike brings up the fact that Carly is looking at art schools and how basically her and her dad are looking and doing their best to make money so that she could go to art school, which is really cool. Carly mentioned that, I wish it was easy for you, Spike. I'm sorry about your dad, about Jimmy. And you see Spike say, me too. And then right when that happens, it transitions to them falling down this cliff area, and they fall down and they fall into the Ark. And man, this is so cool. This is so cool seeing them walk in to the Ark and just see just all the Transformers offline from when the ship crashed into Earth. As again, that's something that happened in the G1 continuity. When the Ark crashed, they were all, offline, and the first one to get put back online was, I believe, Skywarp in the Generation show. I could be wrong. Then you see Carly say, what are those? And Spike says, it looks like they are some kind of robots. As they continue to walk into the Ark, they see Jetfire, which is really cool that Jetfire is here. And you see Jetfire say, my fallen friends, it's finally time. Had I enough power to lift this ship from the mountain, I would bring you all home. But I had enough energon to trigger an earthquake and reveal yourselves to me. And he starts to activate Teletran 1 and saying that he has new forms for these Transformers to have alt modes and disguise themselves here on Earth. And the first one to be activated from Teletran 1 is Starscream. And you see Jetfire basically saying, my old friend, I have not seen you for centuries. Right after Jetfire says, thank you for bringing me back to life, he shoots Bumblebee right in the face, dude. Hits them while they are down. I honestly did not see that coming at all. And Jetfire is grabbing him saying, hey man, what are you doing? And Starscream is basically saying, I'm doing what I gotta do. Do you not see their markings? We are at war for hundreds of years, and the perfect opportunity was right there, and he took it. And as we see Teletran 1 scanning, we see a familiar looking arm. And while Jetfire is trying to stop him, Starscream just shoots Jetfire right in the chest. You have Starscream saying, I'm surprised at you, Jetfire. Showing weakness, what a waste. And Jetfire is saying, no, this is not what I wanted. And Starscream just going on and on as he has his null ray facing what it looks to be Jazz. Right before he pulls the trigger, you have Optimus Prime, who enters in, pulls the null ray, and basically just tackles him, and then he slams him onto the ground, which is amazing. What an entrance for Optimus Prime in this comic. Optimus basically saying, really man, shooting us while we are down literally offline. As Starscream and Optimus are duking it out, you see Spike and Carly make a run for it, and then you see Optimus Prime get up in Spike's face and say, hey, what are you? And Spike's like, I'm Spike. And then right before Starscream's about to throw another shot, Optimus tells him to get behind him. And then we see Ratchet, who comes back online, just kicking Starscream in the shoulder. Starscream gets a real beating, man. He's just getting thrown around. But with Ratchet being brought back online, so does Skywarp. As they start to shoot, they take cover. Optimus rallies up Ratchet and Spike and Carly to go to his trailer. By the way, I find it very funny that his trailer is just really just there on all like the offline Transformers. I just think that's really funny. And as they go to the trailer, Optimus goes and runs to his ion blaster, and Soundwave gets brought back online and says extermination protocol active, as he shoots his shoulder cannon at Optimus's feet, knocking him into the floor with a big explosion. And then you see this emotional scene with Optimus seeing that Bumblebee was shot in the face, and I'm guessing he's dead here, as Optimus says, Bumblebee, oh no. And Spike, witnessing this, he realizes that the Autobots are the good guys. He realizes that Optimus Prime is the good guy here, because you gotta know, Spike's just thrown into this whole situation. He's not really going to understand, who's the good guys, who are the bad guys, as Optimus holding Bumblebee. Starscream grabs Optimus by the neck and starts to, it looks like, puts him in a chokehold. And Starscream says, look at this fool mourning over the weakest of them all. And as Soundwave unleashes Ravage on Optimus's arm as he tries to reach for the Ion Blaster, Spike goes in and rushes in with Carly to push the Ion Blaster to Optimus. And Optimus just shoots. And I mean, like, just shoots Ravage, like, right in the freaking face, dude. Ravage is down for the count. Optimus breaks away from Starscream, dodges from Skywarp's stomp, gets up with the Ion Blaster, and says, I'm sorry, Teletran, we are outnumbered and outgunned, as he has to make the ultimate sacrifice and destroy Teletran 1. And man, this art right here, this whole page of just Optimus shooting Teletran 1, Optimus and Ratchet telling Optimus we're loaded up and ready to go. And you see Optimus run out of this explosion holding Spike and Carly. He's just so freaking cool. And as they are running out, they essentially transform and roll out. And man, I really dig these alt modes. Like, I like how Optimus's alt mode looks. I like his trailer. I like Ratchet's alt mode. It is very good. You see Spike and Carly freaking out as they're about to essentially drive off a cliff, and they do. But they do land. As they land, they are still being followed by Starscream, and you hear Ratchet say, what in Spark's name is in your cab? And Optimus saying, I'm not sure. These small creatures must be natives of this place. And you see Carly say hi to Ratchet as they are still being chased, as Starscream's in the hot pursuit along with Skywarp. While Starscream and Skywarp are still in hot pursuit, we see Jetfire gets up after taking a meaty blast from Starscream, and he gets up and helps Optimus and Ratchet escape, but while also taking another big huge shot. And Skywarp essentially crashes, and this is due to them having low Energon reserves, as them being reactivated from Teletran 1, they still don't have enough energy reserves to really do any of this, so everyone's going past their limits here, and Skywarp is one of the first ones to just kind of poop out here. And then we see on the next page, they do end up going to this old quarry that Jimmy and Spike used to sneak around as a place of, kind of a resting place to hide from the Decepticons, and just not really where anyone can see them and be hidden. But as we go and we see Jetfire, and after taking another shot, it looks like Jetfire is just not really going to make it here. So to all the Jetfire fans, I am so sorry. As we see Optimus go up to Jetfire, and Jetfire says, I am gravely injured, Optimus. And these two have a conversation with each other, reminiscing on how Optimus was in his younger days and how long Jetfire has been gone, trying to find a way to help and restore their planet. And as Optimus brings out his Matrix to try and heal them, Ratchet brings up the fact that the Matrix can heal, but it can't stop the inevitable. You have Jetfire apologizing, saying he didn't know that Starscream and the Decepticons were going to do what they did to the Autobots. As I believe I have to read Void Rivals here to really understand Jetfire's place. I think that's the chronological order here. So expect a Void Rivals coverage on here on the channel, because I'm really interested and intrigued here of how long Jetfire's been gone. So definitely keep an eye out for that on the channel. So, and we see Jetfire ask, is there any hope? And Optimus just says, I don't know. And then you have Jetfire say, I have failed my mission. Cybertron will die. Everything will die, as we see Jetfire die out. We then go back to the arc and we see Starscream demanding Soundwave to fix Teletran 1, and Soundwave saying he can't fix it because it's beyond repair and they need Energon, as he has already sent Laserbeak to scout for resources, and they are now receiving coordinates of possible sources of Energon. And everyone kind of looks at Starscream here saying, like, you know, you go. And Soundwave brings up the fact of the harvesting is up to you. It's what Megatron would do. And before he finishes that sentence, Starscream cuts him off. You have Starscream get up in Soundwave's face and says, do not say his name. I am the leader of the Decepticons now. Which I gotta say, this is a very interesting take. It seems like Starscream finally got what he wanted. Starscream, for the most part, in all Transformers continuities, has always tried to get leadership, always tried to be the leader of the Decepticons, has always tried to take down Megatron, and it seems like he finally got what he asked for, and it's definitely not what he thought it would be. We then see Spike's dad and Davey talk to each other. Davey basically, you know, saying, hey, you know I care about you, right? And you see Spike's dad say, shut the hell up, Davey. You know, basically shutting down this whole conversation of just, look, man, I'm good. Spike's good. And, you know, Davey keeps pressing on and says, Spike needs you, your support. I know it's been rough, but Spike's dad basically lashes out on basically, what do you know about it? Have you gone through what I've gone through? And this is just, Davey's just trying to be a good friend here, and because of, you know, Jimmy being, you know, dead, it's just kind of hard to open up to these type of things, especially, you know, with anyone when it comes to lossing, you know, grieving. Everybody grieves differently, and it seems like for Spike's dad, it might be one of the worst cases here. You see Spike's dad get up in Davy's face and says, you should keep your opinions to yourself. And before that conversation even finishes, we see Starscream coming into this power plant and basically just, you know, mocking the Decepticons, saying, go by yourself, they say, do all the work, they say. Well, I'm tired too. And as you see Starscream just ripping this power plant apart, trying to get energy, you see Spike's dad and Davey trying to run for it. And then you see Starscream look over to Spike's dad and Davey as Starscream grabs Davey and says, are you the creatures that live in this place? As Starscream grabs him and says, so fragile, and he squishes him to death. He literally grabs him with his hand and squishes him to death. And Spike's dad sees that in horror. So where this picks up is we see Optimus during the daytime as he walks out and admires how beautiful Earth is. And I mean, he ain't wrong, because dang, man, this planet really is beautiful. Anyways, Optimus is enjoying how beautiful nature is, but when we see a loud crunch and it turns out that he stepped on and killed a deer. I mean, he just straight up just stomped on it. Like, we see Optimus is very upset because, I mean, it's Optimus. It's not like he just stepped on it and was just going to be like, oh, anyways, nature is beautiful. But yeah, Spike comes in and tells Optimus how it was an accident and how he saw the whole thing happen. And Optimus brings up how Earth is very different to Cybertron, as one is very dense and metal, and for Optimus, the ground doesn't shake when he walks on Cybertron or leaves prints like Earth does for him. And Spike never really thought of it like that, considering, well, Spike has only been on Earth. And then we see Spike and Optimus keep talking more about Cybertron, and Spike asked Optimus how he got his name, which, by the way, he explains some juicy details on Cybertron and how the primes work. So Optimus explains how the prime part of his name is passed down from previous leaders and how he is at the top of the Autobot hierarchy, which we know by now is how it genuinely works for primes being the main leader of the Autobots when it comes to, you know, the Transformers mythos and how that works. So it is just cool to see that the Skybound Comics are pulling from that and having, you know, Prime still be top dog of the Autobot hierarchy. And what's funny about Spike asking Optimus how he got his name, Optimus also asked Spike how he got his name, and Spike is just like, well, when I was little, my hair was sick up and my mom would call me Spiky. So yeah, there you go. That's how Spike got his name. And Optimus just simply replies with, what is mom? Which is honestly really adorable for Optimus to say that. Spike then explains how family is, and Optimus explains how he is also familiar with the concept of family. And Spike asked Optimus where he is from and how he got here on Earth. And boy, oh boy, we get some more juicy Cybertron lore. Okay, so Optimus tells Spike that he is from the planet Cybertron, which is a beautiful planet on its own, harsh way, and how it was like that for only millennia, and how before his spark came into being, there was peace. Which, by the way, I find really interesting how peace on Cybertron was a thing before Optimus came into play. Maybe this means he was Orion Pax? there was peace on Cybertron and he just means like when he was reborn as Optimus. Or perhaps there was just war going on when Optimus was around, even before he was a Prime. Anyways, Optimus tells Spike how his species, the Cybertronians, were consumed by greed and power, and implies that maybe that greed and power was always there since the birth of Cybertron. But Optimus disagrees with that point and says that it just came out of nowhere with the greed and power from the faction called the Decepticons. Which, I mean, we're all familiar by now who the Decepticons are and what their motives are. And Spike asks Optimus, one of the Decepticons was the big red and gray one. And Optimus responds with how Starscream is one of the many that the Autobots have been fighting for centuries, and says, among others. And dude, we see Megatron right there looking ominous as hell, bro, which is so freaking cool to tease Megatron like that. Oh man, it really does get me excited for the special issue, what seems to be a prequel of probably what went on in the arc between Optimus and Megatron. Optimus then continues to talk about how due to the war they lost a lot of Autobots, and it got so bad to the point that they had to leave Cybertron to find a new way to retake Cybertron, which is very on point for the Transformers mythos for the most part when it comes to the beginning of the story as to how they ended up on Earth. We see Optimus explain how when they were in space, the Decepticons purged their arc, and then we see this awesome fight between Optimus and Megatron, which is so freaking cool, man. See these two duke it out like this. It's so cool to see these two duke it out, especially in this art style. But Optimus brings up how the last thing he saw was Earth right before the arc crashed, entering its atmosphere. Spike replies with how they crashed into the mountain. That's where Spike and Carly found them, and Optimus brings up how if it wasn't for Spike and Carly, they wouldn't have been able to escape, which, you know, I agree. Maybe, you know, good old-fashioned the touch starts playing and Optimus starts to go ham on the Decepticons, you know, maybe could have clutched up for everyone without Spike and Carly, you know what I'm saying? Anyways, Spike tells Optimus how he is sorry about Bumblebee and what happened to him, and Optimus just replies with the word family. And then what we see on the next page is boom, Cliff Jumper, who I gotta say, it's really nice to see again. I mean, like, I'm only on issue 2 right now, but I hope this guy doesn't die right away, because that seems to be the current trend with Cliff Jumper, who just appears and is awesome and then dies. So I really hope that this isn't the case here. But we see Cliff Jumper and Optimus just straight up dap each other up and talk how nice it is to see each other again. And then we see Cliff Jumper freak out because he sees Spike, and Spike also freaks out because, well, he sees Cliff Jumper. So we see Spike reach out his hand to shake hands, and Cliff Jumper backs up and says, "We are not there yet, my man," which is really funny to see Cliff Jumper react like this. But we then see Carly, who comes to meet Cliff Jumper as well, and Cliff Jumper also freaks out and is like, "How many of you are there?" Which is very funny that Cliff Jumper is reacting like this. Like, I'm glad we're seeing another Autobot who is a little bit more, you know, funny with it, a little bit more like, you know, quippy. So it's just nice seeing Cliff Jumper react like this. And then we see Carly throw a rock at Cliff Jumper and calls Cliff Jumper out, basically saying how it's also crazy and new for Spike and her to see metal robots walking around talking, which, I mean, honestly, is a very good point. And Cliff Jumper sees it that way as well as they shake hands and reintroduce each other, which I find really funny that this whole interaction between these two even happens at all. So I don't know. There's something about when it comes to like other Transformers meeting the humans, and it's just like very awkward. It's just very funny to me. We then pick back up at the quarry as sort of their headquarters for now, as we saw the quarry in the last issue, as that's where they ended up going to escape from Starscream and Skywarp. So this is just kind of like their headquarters now. And we see Ratchet mention to Optimus how when Jetfire scanned and gave everyone new modes, he also made sure to keep intact their Cybertronian technology, meaning Optimus's trailer is still able to be a repair bay, and using leftover metal in the quarry, slowly one by one, they are starting to come back online. Which is really cool that they are using Optimus's trailer like this, as this is a callback to Optimus's G1 toy that had the little repair bay with his trailer, and we see the little roller in there as well, which is just really cool that they're doing that and giving it its purpose again. We then see Ratchet go on to explain how they used all their Energon to fix Cliff Jumper, and how they are all out, and Spike and Carly ask, you know, what is Energon, and if it's like food for them, and Ratchet answers saying it's exactly how that works, and that's what keeps them alive, and how they need a massive amount to bring the rest of the Autobots back online. We see once again Optimus offer to use his Matrix to bring back online the remaining Autobots, and Ratchet brings up how the power of the Matrix is linked with Optimus' spark and that the risk would be too high. Cliff Jumper also mentions that if they're running low on Energon, so then is the Decepticons. And next page we are picking up the destruction that Starscream left behind at the power plant, and where we saw Starscream kill Davey right in front of Sparkplug's eyes. We see a cop is basically just trying to understand the situation and just writing everything down around trying to gather what happened. And we have this one guy tell the cop how it was a giant robot that came and destroyed the place, and the cop doesn't really believe him at first. And then we see Sparkplug speak up and say how the guy isn't lying and that the robot did come here and was saying, look what they did to Davey, and that's how, you know, Davey died. And the cop says, all right, well, you know, we'll get some detectives over here. And Sparkplug, rightfully so, tells the cop that, no, man, we need to send the army here, no detectives. Forget protocol. We need the freaking army. As the cop starts to, you know, tell Sparkplug, you know, that's not really how that works. And Sparkplug goes back and forth with that. Before any of those like sentences get finished, we see Skywarp and the other Decepticons enter the scene again. And they're back at the power plant to siphon more energy and turn into Energon by using an energy converter that was in the Ark. And as they are using the energy converter, the cops are shooting at them thinking, you know, their bullets are going to work. And as their bullets aren't really doing anything, shocker. I mean, what would you really expect? And as the cop gets closer, we see Starscream just straight up just stomps on the cop, like right in front of Sparkplug's face. This poor guy just can't catch a break. But once we see the energy converter they get from the Ark is done, we see that the Decepticons are fueling back up on Energon. And on these next couple pages here, man, oh man, things get hyped. Okay, so we see a fighter jet and these pilots are just talking as they are on their way back to the base. And they suddenly pick up something from the radio. They go and check it out, and as they are talking about that, going to check out what's going on with the radio, Soundwave then picks up this communication and that they are sending countermeasures, and Starscream gets excited and starts to go as he says, oh, the Squishes are trying to fight? I have to see this. And then we start to see this fighter jet with these pilots versus Starscream. And man, oh man, these things get really freaking cool here. So as these two jets, sort of say, start to duke it out with Starscream and these two pilots, these two start to go at it, but not very long, as Starscream does take the upper hand, and I mean, I would hope so. This is Starscream we're talking about. And once the fighter jet was able to get behind Starscream, as they had a shot directly locked onto Starscream, right when they were about to take it, Starscream transforms and just knocks the jet back and laughs, saying this is fun, which is honestly such a dick move by Starscream. But as the jet is starting to spiral out, we see Frosting the pilot, who's, you know, the main pilot of the jet, start to pull the eject, and they end up getting off. But unfortunately for Frosting, he wasn't able to escape, as while he was ejecting to the sky, Starscream catches him and just says hi before completely squishing him to death. Which, oh my god, Starscream is just a walking war crime machine. But as the other pilot sees his partner get squished and screams, Starscream goes to this other pilot, and this pilot, shall we say, starts to clutch up as he turns his parachute into a jetpack, loads up his pistol as he completely dodges Starscream's punch, and then gets on top of him with an angle and just lays the biggest FU shot to Starscream's eye. And because Starscream got styled like that and can't see, he retreats like a little baby, and we see Starscream retreat and say, whatever, stupid humans, you'll all be dead eventually. And we see on the name tag of this pilot that made that shot was in fact Duke. And bam, I did not expect that type of crossover for G.I. Joe, man. That was awesome and very subtle. And now this makes me want to read Duke now, I'm not gonna lie. Anyways, as we go back again to the power plant, we see Spike's dad. Sparkplug starts to get in the police car as Skywarp starts to hunt him down and starts to mock him. And as all that's going down, we see Soundwave warns Skywarp to look out, as right behind him we see a jet lay down an airstrike right on Skywarp and Soundwave. And I just love Skywarp's reaction is just, oh, because I mean, how else are you going to react to something like that? We then shift back to the quarry as the Autobots and Spike and Carly see the explosion from the power plant, wondering where the explosion was coming from. And Spike and Carly put it together pretty quickly that it is in fact the power plant, and Cliffjumper points out that it is as well Decepticons who blew up the power plant. And as Spike starts to worry, we see Optimus Prime get ready to go in and stop Decepticons. As he tells Spike the Decepticons will not waste any time, and they will take all energy to make Energon anywhere they can get it and do it by force. Ratchet warns Optimus that they need Energon more than fighting the Decepticons, and Optimus replies with, we have no choice, and I brought our war to this beautiful place. Even if by accident, it is my duty to now defend it. Which, by the way, what a hard line for Optimus to say right there. But as Optimus gets ready to go by himself, he tells Cliffjumper to stay with Ratchet and protect the offline Autobots, and Spike tells Optimus he needs to go with him so he can see his dad and make sure he's okay. Optimus denies this, but Spike says family, and Optimus agrees to take Spike. As they get ready to go on the next page, we see Carly drive back to her house because she also wants to go see her family. And then we see Laserbeak scan Carly's van from when we saw earlier, showing off they're using the leftover metal from the quarry and stuff. So Laserbeak scans that, and we pick up on Sparkplug going to this house, opens up a case. Then we see Carly walk into her house asking where her dad is, and Sparkplug grabs her. And as Carly's freaking out, asking where Spike And where's her dad? Sparkplug responds with how they killed Davy, that they killed your dad. And you see Carly freaking out as she just learned that Davy, her dad, was killed by Starscream, which, you know, we knew that back in issue 1, but as she is freaking out, we see Sparkplug start to comfort her and asking if it was a robot that killed her dad, the, you know, red and gray one, Starscream. And as Carly's asking all this, Sparkplug starts to freak out because he's wondering how does she know about the robots, and then he starts to ask if Spike is okay in them. And as all that's going down, we see Laserbeak break into the house and start to attack Carly and Sparkplug, which is really crazy. We knew that Laserbeak was tracking Carly, and to see Laserbeak just come into the house like that is just really crazy. But we do end up seeing Cliffjumper come in and save the day. And you know, Cliffjumper being Cliffjumper and his luck, when he tells Carly that he was following her and saying that he was making sure that she was okay, we see Sparkplug just shoot him in the face with a shotgun. And this is just so funny to me because seeing this type of interaction with humans and just seeing, you know, Cliffjumper get blasted in the face with a shotgun is actually just amazing. He didn't even think twice and just blam, shot him. And while Cliffjumper gets knocked down, Sparkplug grabs Carly and they drive off, even though Cliffjumper is a good guy. And we know Cliffjumper is not after them. We then pick back up at the arc with Starscream and Soundwave, and it turns out the energy that they were harvesting from the power plant wasn't enough energy to fully bring back their Cybertronian technology. And because of this, Starscream gets super pissed, and just like any bad leader, Starscream lashes out on Soundwave as Soundwave mentions Megatron, and you know Starscream once again gets all mad and upsetty spaghetti hearing Megatron's name. But out of that interaction, Soundwave brings up how Laserbeak found an Autobot signature, and Starscream sends out Skywarp to check it out. We shift back to Carly and Sparkplug as they go to the bar that we saw in issue 1 for some extra help, as the internet is down and any sort of technology in the city is down due to the Decepticons jamming everything. So they really are just working with what they got. And we see Sparkplug go to the bar, and we see him and other people at the bar squad up as they are ready to go on the attack in case the Decepticons or any sort of other Transformer comes their way. And I say that because Carly tells Sparkplug that Cliffjumper is one of the ones that Spike and her spoke to and are the good ones. And Sparkplug responds to her and says, "I've been in war, Carly. It doesn't matter whose team they're on or what glorious cause they fight for. When the shooting starts, people die," which is a good point, and we'll come back to that in a second later. But I mean, come on, man. You guys are outsized, outgunned, and outclassed. And we see that in the next page as we see Cliffjumper come back to saying how, you know, maybe we might have gone off on the wrong foot, and starts to apologize. And before he could even finish that sentence, we see Sparkplug once again started blasting on Cliffjumper. He literally wasted no time. And we see Cliffjumper just say, "What the heck," again. As I mean, this hurts Cliffjumper, but it's not like something's gonna like actually put him down. I mean, the LMG is gonna hurt, but it's nothing crazy. Before anything else with that interaction goes down, we see as it gets even more escalated as we see Skywarp enter the scene. And remember when I said they were outgunned, outclassed, and outsized? Yeah, this is what I meant. And the rest of this issue really is just action. We see that when Skywarp starts to cause a havoc, just kicking around the guys from the bar, sucker punching Cliffjumper. It is not his day. And we see all this going down. We see Robo Jesus himself, Optimus, driving with Spike going downtown as they see Skywarp, and they start to double time it to his location to stop him. Next page, we see Skywarp just throwing cars and kicking people from the bar around and commenting on how Starscream was right. It is a total blast, and we see Cliffjumper on the floor after taking a beating from Skywarp. And what we might think is the final moments from Cliffjumper, as Skywarp says, "Prepare for the black insect." And we see Carly step in, telling Skywarp not to kill him, as Skywarp laughs and saying, "What are you trying to do, protect him?" And we see Optimus just rush into battle, and dude, we see him take down Skywarp. And Optimus Prime transforms, getting ready to fight Skywarp, and he tells Spike to get to cover. Both of them start to trade blows, and dude, okay, so if you didn't know, Skywarp is one of the main seekers in the Transformers, and his core ability is to be able to teleport from point A to point B, just a simple teleportation ability. And we saw that first in the G1 cartoon, and the way Daniel Warren Johnson uses Skywarp's ability is so cool here, man. He basically opens up like a rift of sorts and is able to send his arm, or I guess anything else, through the rift. So it's more like he's sending a portal to another point A and point B, instead of just sending himself from point A to point B. It is really cool. And we see Skywarp just straight up grab Optimus from the back of his head and just slam him on the freaking floor as Skywarp takes the upper edge in this fight. And we start to see Optimus charge up his hand. And dude, if you don't already know, sit down. Let me tell you something. We see Optimus charge up his hand and picks up Skywarp and basically rock bottoms him. But we see Optimus charge up his hand in Foley, and we see the infamous Energon axe. And dude, the art here is amazing. It is freaking amazing. We see Optimus Prime drop one of the most rawest lines ever by saying, "You fought hard, Skywarp. Let us be done now." But unfortunately, before we see Optimus and Skywarp The group from the bar launch an RPG on Optimus's arm, and then Skywarp shoots Optimus' arm, resulting in Optimus losing his right arm. And his really cool axe, which sucks. So Optimus gets knocked down, and Skywarp and the idiots from the bar start to shoot Optimus, and we see Spike run in to save Optimus, and Spike gets shot from the crossfire. Optimus and Sparkplug both freak out, and Sparkplug tells everyone from the bar to stop shooting. And while this is happening, you see Skywarp mock Optimus and say, "First him, now you." And before Skywarp even finishes that sentence, we see Optimus tackle Skywarp. And this is when Optimus reaches a snapping point, and he says, "Your kind has played enough with this planet." And he just rips his arm off and uses it as a weapon, man. This is so freaking metal. This whole issue is so metal, and I just love it, dude. Optimus uses his arm as a flail and just starts to just beat the living crap out of Skywarp, using his arm as a weapon, picking him up and throwing him down, and the fight is officially finished as Optimus is the victor of this fight. But with this victory, it did come at a cost, as we do see Spike on the floor bleeding out. And when we see this, it shows the deer that Optimus stepped on back in the beginning of issue 2, and Optimus starts to get really upset and distraught, and we see Optimus pick up Spike, and as Sparkplug freaks out, telling Optimus, "What are you doing? Give me my son back," we see Optimus offer to take Sparkplug with him as well, as they are going to go and try and save Spike. And this picks up after the events of issue 3, and we see Starscream encounters Skywarp, and Skywarp is not looking too good after taking a beating from Optimus last issue, which was dope. And Starscream wants to know where the Autobots went, and Skywarp tells Starscream that they went up east to go save Spike. We didn't see Starscream leave, then we cut to Ratchet, who is trying to bring Wheeljack back online, and he gets a transmission from Optimus saying that they need help, and Optimus tells Ratchet that Spike is hurt and bleeding out. And as Optimus telling Ratchet that, he gets interrupted by Starscream firing at Optimus. And this leaves Ratchet to make a decision between helping Optimus or bringing back Wheeljack, and ultimately he chooses to help Optimus. We then see Starscream corner Optimus, and as Optimus is ready to gun it forward, we see Cliffjumper ask Carly if she wants to ditch, and Carly stays in the car and says, "Are you kidding me?" And we just see Cliffjumper sweep the freaking leg Johnny. We see Starscream getting knocked over, and then we see Optimus completely just run over Starscream. And Starscream yet again takes a beating. And we see Optimus thank Cliffjumper for the help, and they both go drive away, avoiding any more conflict from the Decepticons. At least for now. As they take Spike to the emergency room, and I love this part on how they are just dropping off Spike and Sparkplug, and you just see Optimus transform and say, "Please help my friend." And the doctors are just confused, like, is that a robot? but then we get interrupted by Laserbeak, and Laserbeak starts to rain down fire on Optimus and Cliffjumper, trying to protect Spike and medical staff and shooting back Laserbeak. But in the midst of them shooting Laserbeak, Rumble comes in and blitzes Cliffjumper, knocking him down, and Soundwave then blitzes Optimus, saying the most typical but awesome Soundwave line, saying, "Optimus inferior." And just as Soundwave is about to pull the trigger on Optimus, Starscream told him to wait. As Starscream looks around and realizes this hospital is what fixes, as Starscream calls, the squishy ones. We see Starscream start to mock Optimus, saying that he is pathetic and he can't believe that Optimus would bring the ants to a place to get repaired. Starscream then starts to shoot the hospital, interrupting the doctors from trying to save Spike and cutting the power from the hospital, leaving people untreated. And as Starscream is laughing, being a complete menace, we see Soundwave warn Starscream of reinforcements. And dude, oh man, okay, let me calm down. So we see Ratchet say, "Jazz, do what you do best," and boom, we see Jazz back in action, and we see him in his beautiful Porsche alt mode. And the goat says, "Time to change up this tune." And we see Cliffjumper get excited as the Moonbase 1 bro is back. And we see Jazz start to amp up, counting 2, 5, 1, taking down Starscream and Soundwave with ease. And let me just say, I really like how in these comics, we see a lot of the Autobots use like wrestling moves. I don't know, it's just really cool that they use these type of like wrestling like move takedowns. It's just really cool to me, and I really just like how Mike Spicer draws them. Anyways, once the cons take a beating from the goat Jazz, we see the Autobots take the upper hand, and Optimus asks them, should we finish this fight? And as Decepticons being Decepticons, they retreat. And I just love this image right here. We see Cliffjumper flipping off the Decepticon as they retreat. Which is amazing and spot on for the character. We then switch back to the hospital as the doctors tell Optimus that the power is still out and that they have stabilized Spike for now, but they need power for him to be breathing, and that it won't be just Spike who dies tonight. And as Sparkplug is comforting Spike, telling him it's going to be okay, we see Optimus observe this interaction, And without even thinking twice, Optimus opens up his chest, unleashes the Matrix, and let me just say, this looks dope. I don't know, anytime we see Optimus use the Matrix, it always just looks dope, man. But when Optimus unleashes the Matrix, Ratchet warns him, no. And Optimus responds with, no more death, Ratchet. Even if it comes at a price. No more death. With the power of the Matrix unleashed, we see it completely restore the power in the hospital, and they rush to Spike to the ICU, thanking Optimus for what he has done for the people in the hospital. We shift back to the Ark, as that's where the Decepticons have been hanging around as their hideout, and as Soundwave brings up how it is the second time they have failed in their mission. No goal and no conquest, only destruction. He asks Starscream if that's all he has in mind for as leader, and Starscream, once again being a bad leader, he doesn't take any accountability and tells Soundwave that it's his fault for not fixing Teletran 1, and how they need more soldiers, and that everyone that is on the ship is offline and that are useless, and how he needs fixing as well. Soundwave then tells Starscream again that they do not have the materials needed for repairs and only exist in Cybertronian technology. And we see Starscream and Soundwave just being desperate as ever, staring down the damaged Skywarp, and they just rip him to shreds for his remaining energy for repairs. And man, that is metal. I did not honestly see that coming. I know this comic's been like very like gory, but like I honestly did not see that. They're just staring Skywarp down and they just rip him apart for energy, which is just so freaking crazy. Anyways, we go back to the hospital and we see Sparkplug talk to Spike, telling him it was difficult for him when he got back from the war. How he wanted to protect Spike and protect him from where he grew up, and that's why he moved out here to start over. And he mentions how the world can be cruel and how he can't see the good anymore, at least not since the war and not since Spike's brother. He tells Spike that he feels like he's infected. He can't remember how to see the good and how he isn't there to remind him of the good. And this is just one of those situations on how war can really affect people and how much of an impact it has on people in many ways. And for Sparkplug here, it just seems like it's really impacted him a lot. And we've really seen that plenty from Sparkplug so far in this run, especially, you know, considering in the first issue how we saw Sparkplug act when it came to Jimmy. And it just seems like Sparkplug now really is just a glass half empty mindset. But as Sparkplug finishes talking to Spike, we see a kid from the hospital asking Optimus if it is true that he can turn into a truck. And this is such a wholesome scene here. It is very adorable, as Optimus responds saying, indeed, it is true. And the kid asks Optimus if he can do it. Optimus replies saying, I'm a little worse for wear, but gladly. And we see Optimus transform, and the kid acts like pretty much how any of us would react, saying, oh my god, that is awesome. It really is like an adorable little scene. And when we see Sparkplug confront Optimus, we also see Optimus transform back, and the kid's like, oh, he can turn back too. But Sparkplug asked if Optimus saved Spike, and Optimus says that it wasn't him, it was a gift that he was sharing that was given to him many years ago, meaning the Matrix. And Sparkplug asks Optimus if he can do it again because Spike is in a coma, and you know, Optimus probably saying how he used every bit of what the Matrix was left. And this isn't the first time we've seen something like this where the Matrix is kind of empty. I believe the first time we saw it in media was Return of Optimus Prime Part 2, when Optimus unleashed every ounce left of the Matrix, curing everyone in the universe from the hate plague, and then having to refill it up again with wisdom, which is a really cool concept. And let me just say, that alone is just one of the many reasons why I love the Matrix and Transformers media. But anyways, we see Optimus bring up how it is up to the Great Spark, and Sparkplug responds with, don't you mean gods? Don't you fall into that category? And Optimus responds, and he honestly chuckles here, which I find very cool for Optimus' character, as he says he can say the same thing to Sparkplug, and Sparkplug responds saying, nah man, I'm nothing, you know, compared to you. And Optimus responds with, true, small, but still mighty. And let me just say, I really gotta tip my hat to Daniel Warren Johnson, as he has really captured the essence of Optimus in these comics. Like, he's very fatherly-esque, but he's also stoic. It's a nice blend, and he really captures the Optimus' spirit really well, especially in this issue. And we'll get back to that in a second, because we shift back to the quarry with Optimus in his trailer and Ratchet, and we see Ratchet isn't too happy with Optimus, telling him how it was reckless to unleash the Matrix because the Matrix is linked to Optimus' spark, and Optimus doesn't really look at it like that as a big risk, and says that he had no choice. Saving an innocent creature and not doing anything about it just isn't how Optimus is. And Ratchet responds by saying how they are not innocent, saying look at what they did to their own kind, how they are prone to anger and destruction. Optimus responds with, just like us, which is a very true statement from Optimus, again capturing the essence of Optimus Prime. But before that conversation continues, we see our goat Jazz start to run out of Energon, and how Ratchet brings up how he barely had enough Energon to bring Jazz online to help Optimus and Cliffjumper. And unfortunately, our goat goes back offline, and Optimus tells him, it's alright, you did well, and you can rest now. And I am very upset by this. I need more Jazz and more media, please. Anyways, Ratchet brings up to Optimus on how they need to start thinking for themselves, and that if Optimus dies, we all die. And that happens, what's left of humanity? What will be left once Decepticons take over? And Optimus responds with, they are always worth saving. Everything is. And again, this moment where Daniel Warren Johnson nails Optimus's character of just, you know, the whole aspect of freedom is the right of all sentient beings, which is really awesome, man. Again, hats off to Daniel Warren Johnson. But we see Ratchet mention how he can't heal Optimus or anyone else until they find more Energon. But he mentions how they have one more thing that might help them bring back the initiative. And Optimus closes the trailer and says no, he can't use this, and Ratchet brings up how he has no choice because Optimus is wounded. And if you're wondering what he is talking about, you'll see in a second. And we see Sparkplug tell Optimus how he has an idea on how they can get more energy. The next page, we see Cliffjumper comforting Carly on everything that has happened to her and her dad. And he asks Carly if she's doing okay, and she responds with, how's that even a question? Cliffjumper tells her that he knows what she's going through. And this is some really cool background lore info on Cliffjumper, as he tells Carly that Starscream killed his entire clan, like literally just wiped out his entire family, and then the next day he joined the war. And that is just really insane, just thinking about it, like just Cliffjumper having a whole family and just Starscream just wiping them out, and the next day you're just signed up for the war, ready to like fight back. And Carly asks Cliffjumper if it ever gets easier, and Cliff comforts Carly. But then we see Optimus enter this scene, and dude, oh my god, dude, okay, we see Optimus interrupt this conversation and ask Cliffjumper, how do you feel about going on the offensive? And boom, we see Optimus with Megatron's right arm now attached to him with the fusion cannon. And dude, this looks amazing, dude. This looks so good. We then shift back to the Decepticons dragging Skywarp, who is still somehow alive, and we see Starscream say victory and how he is a Decepticon leader today and tomorrow and forever. And boom, we see Megatron frozen in ice. And that is how the issue ends. And man, honestly, this was the best issue yet. I mean, Optimus looks dope with Megatron's arm. And we finally see where Megatron has been, and I think either Void Rivals or I believe Cobra show what or how, you know, the whole thing with Megatron and how he's like, how or why he's in ice, which I really got to read up on. But man, this gives me heavy '07 movie vibes with him being in frozen ice. All right, we are on issue 5, and just like issue 4, this is pretty nuts, dude. So this picks up on the events after of issue 4, and you see an image of Sparky and Optimus both experiencing what war can do. And we see Blaster for the first time and just for him to get wasted, which really sucks. But you do have these two experience what war has done to them, and you have Optimus ask Sparkplug how long was his war, and Sparky responded with just one tour. It shifts to Sparky and Optimus in this building, and Sparky saying it was enough and asked Optimus how long was his, and Optimus says years and years, and that he has lost count and that the war is still going on. Even though the war has been going on for so long, he's reminded in his reflection, and he sees the very thing he is fighting against. We shift gears to the Decepticons on the Ark, and that Starscream's plan works, and Soundwave mentions that Skywarp's sacrifice provided the necessary tech to begin rebuilding the Decepticons, and Soundwave is trying to bring Ravage back online, and Starscream, just being a total jerk, just punts dead Ravage and basically says we are not wasting our resources on bringing Ravage back, and instead they bring Thundercracker online, who is confusing as Skywarp become like this machine of sorts that is bringing these, you know, Decepticons back online. And Starscream tells Thundercracker that to forget it and that, you know, Skywarp volunteered it, which is a lie. Like, it's just a blatant lie. And then Soundwave gets alerted that the Autobots have found their source of Energon, and a voice suggests that they should go and stop them. And the next page here is really cool as we see Reflector, and man, I don't know last time we saw Reflector, but I gotta be honest, Reflector kind of sucks, so I don't know what he's really gonna do here. And I don't know, I'm not really counting that terrible Siege show that had him in it, but, you know, it is cool to see Reflector. And we also see Frenzy, and you have Reflector asking where is Megatron, and before
Once again, the name gets fully finished. Starscream gets up in Reflector's face and tells him to stay focused on the enemy and to get ready to fight, and so the Decepticons go on the offensive and they go and attack the Autobots. We then pick back up at the dam, and Ratchet brings up on how smart Sparkplug was to go to the dam, as all the energy of the Decepticons took from the power plant is actually all by the water coming down from the mountains, and to just why not take it from the source. We also get to see Wheeljack, who is half operational, as Ratchet was able to fully bring back only the upper body Wheeljack, as they didn't really have enough energy. And it's really interesting here that Wheeljack is literally on a upper body or a borrowed body of sorts, which is really cool. I don't know if we've ever seen something like this before in media. I could be wrong. Only thing I can really think of is like Autobot Spike, but that's not really the same comparison. Anyways, you basically have Wheeljack. Also give props to Sparky as well, with his idea that with the water turbine engine they have constructed, they'll be able to power their town for at least a decade. And just like you and me, Sparky is surprised by that, but Wheeljack tells him that is what Cybertronian technology can do, which is really cool. So with this turbine engine on, they are now able to start healing and bringing back the Autobots online. So you do have this machine turned on, and you have Wheeljack say, "All right, Optimus, time to get you healed up." And you have Optimus walk in carrying RC and just say, "Not yet, first our warriors." And we see RC's finally brought back on. And Ratchet is the first one to greet her, and Ratchet and both RC are very happy to see each other. And then boom, a huge explosion goes off, and you have RC tackling Ratchet and saving him in the explosion, as the Decepticons are now here to start fighting the Autobots. And now you essentially have a huge firefight of all the Decepticons against the Autobots at this dam, trying their best to protect this tower. And then you see Ratchet and RC carry the goat to the turbine and try to bring Jazz back online. We see Starscream drop off Reflector and say, "Reflector attack," and you know, Reflector talking all big, saying, "Oh, prepare yourselves for the ISO, Autobots, blah, 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 blah." Yeah, he drops on Robo Jesus himself with the fusion cannon, and Reflector realized he ain't built for this and gets dismantled. And the massacre doesn't stop there, as Frenzy starts to freak out, and Robo Jesus once again takes another Decepticon to church and slams him on this post, crushing his face and upper body, which is brutal, by the way. I mean, this is just brutal. This gives like Baver's Optimus a run for his money, and I love this, man. I love how I love this version of Optimus. We talked about it in this last video. When things get serious, there is no time to blink when it comes to survival. And this version of Optimus really does remind me of the Cybertron games Optimus. If you guys are familiar with those, which are amazing, please Activision bring those games back. But in the next page, we see Carly and Cliffjumper shooting at Thundercracker. And for some reason, Carly thinks she can just avoid all the fire and gets out of cover. And because of this, she goes flying from shooting from Thundercracker, and, you know, the whole floor beneath her, you know, explodes and she starts to go flying. But you have this really cool part here where no one's really able to get Carly, you know, midair except RC, who she catches, and she says, "I don't know who you are, but if Optimus cares about you, then I care too." And she saves Carly midair by using her alt mode. And this is really freaking cool, man. Her alt mode is like a Lambo type car. That is dope. I don't know if we've ever seen RC have a type of alt mode like this, maybe in the IDW comics, perhaps. But seeing this here is really cool. It gets bonus points for me for having RC be like a Lambo type car, because we just don't really see that often. But the next page, you'll see Cliffjumper happy that Carly is saved and RC is back. And as Rumble is about to get ready to gank our boy, have no fear, because the GOAT is back. The fellow Moonbase 1 bro has come and saved Cliffjumper and says it's time to wrap this ballad up. And you just have Cliff shooting with the GOAT saying, "I don't understand that reference." That is amazing. I love these two so much. I've always loved these two. They're dynamic, they're duo. So just seeing it again is just amazing. But then you have Starscream confront Optimus, saying, taking something so precious and using it for himself and using it for his own evil purpose. And Optimus claps back at Starscream, basically saying, how can it be precious when basically this weapon is a reminder of his cowardice and a reminder that he will never be like Megatron. And, you know, because of this, Starscream gets all, you know, mad, and he actually blitzes Optimus, but he's not aiming for him. Instead, he's aiming for the trailer that's bringing the Autobots back online and stuff and repairing them. And it damages the trailer, but not before it can get fully destroyed. And Optimus completely just nukes Starscream with the fusion cannon. He literally takes a piece out of him. I don't know how he's not dead. Like, he literally shoots, like, the side of him, and the side of him is missing. The fusion cannon seems busted. Like, oh my god, don't play with Megatron, man. But somehow Starscream survives and basically has the same mentality from ROTF. Cowards do survive, and they end up calling the remaining Decepticons to retreat. which gives the Autobots a chance to go and take back the Ark. And oof, I mean, we're gonna get right to it. And so they do go to the Ark, and you do have this moment of the Autobots telling Carly to stay back, but I mean, come on, we all know she was gonna go with them anyway, so Cliffjumper takes her with them. And so on the next page, we do see them on their way to the Ark, and you have Sparky asking Optimus if that is their ship, and Optimus replies yes. And you get a flashback of Sparky hugging Jimmy and telling him to go take care of himself. And as Sparkplug's about to say something, the Autobots get blitzed, and I mean hard, as Optimus gets crushed by a familiar looking construction vehicle. And dude, okay. Alright, let me calm down. So you have these green construction vehicles basically make easy work of the Autobots, and then you have Starscream say, "I knew you would follow me, Autobot fools, trying to clean up the mess you made out of our kind. But look at me now, and I'm good as new with all the Energon with Teletran 1. And with new toys." And boom, we see the Constructicons ready to merge for the kill. And so Starscream says the infamous line, "Constructicons merge into Devastator." And boom, Devastator is back and ready to cause havoc. Hey yo, what's going on guys? And we are picking up on the final events of issue 6, which as far as I know, this is the final sort of story for this whole arc, these 6 issues, so sort of a volume, I guess. Anyways, this picks up literally right after the events of issue 5, and we have Sparky here who, from the last issue and even before that, he's been having these sort of flashbacks of Jimmy. And once this flashback happens, you have Jimmy say, "Don't worry, Dad, nothing is going to happen." And right when we see the shuttle explode, boom, with a snap of a fingers, Sparky is brought back into reality, and it's just the Autobots scrambling to safety as Devastator is just raining down. And I do just want to say here, if you aren't familiar with Devastator, he's just 6 Decepticons are here. Constructicons merge into a bigger robot. That's, you know, how usually combiners work. And considering how big regular Transformers are to us, the way it's shown here for Devastator, he is tall building size, almost skyscraper size. So that is massive. And you have the Autobots trying to race to the entrance of the Ark, and we see Cliffjumper and Carly catch up with them, and they enter the scene. And Carly tells Cliff to stop, and honestly, I'm glad she did, because the way Cliffjumper is portrayed in media now for Transformers is he just dies for the sake of it. Like, he'll show up and he just dies just like that, and it's become a meme now. And I know without a doubt, if Cliffjumper and his size and not really having the firepower, he would just die just, you know, like that to Devastator. Like, it really wouldn't be anything. Like, he would just die. And Carly basically tells him that we should just go around and see if we can go from, you know, top of the ship or the side of the ship and go inside and help them from there and be smart, which is good. And so we shift back to Optimus's POV, and they are getting really close here to the Ark and, you know, close to closing the door. And Devastator and Decepticons keep piling it on right as they're about to fully go inside. Optimus grabs Sparky and kind of puts him aside from danger, only for Optimus to get yoinked by Devastator. Which, what's really cool here is it just does not matter, dude, if you are a Prime or not. When Devastator has you like this, you either need to have firepower or be ready and confident, and Optimus was neither of these here. He was completely caught off guard, so Devastator whacks him across the floor. Also kind of funny how Starscream gets hit and goes flying. But Optimus takes a serious beating, and a lethal one at that. And the Goat and the others start to counterfire at Devastator, which gives them an opening to go in and drag Optimus and get in the Ark and close the door. And since Ratchet is already missing a leg here, he's basically crawling, and because of that, he gets grabbed by Devastator. And honestly, I thought here, well, Ratchet is dead. No. Jazz, being the big brain that he is, he ends up closing the door in time, but the door does end up chopping off Ratchet's other leg. So you now have the Autobots locked inside of the Ark, away from danger, for now, and you have Devastator kind of like throwing a fit, you know, pounding at the front door and stuff, and Soundwave points out to, hey, go and stomp on the other side. That way we don't have to deal with all the rock, and you'll just be stomping at the Ark, and that's how they'll break in. And they were already on borrowed time here with Devastator pounding, and now going to the side of the Ark, making it easy. Their time is basically cut in half here. We go back to Cliffjumper's POV with Carly as they make it up to the top ledge area of the Ark, and they are followed by Starscream, and you have Carly say, "You killed my dad," and Starscream laughs and then just says, "Wait, what is dad?" Which is just, it's hilarious here. Like, whether you hate him or not, it's funny because this is what happened with issue 2 when Optimus says, "What is mom?" And then you have Starship say, well, alright then, kill dad. Kill Red Boy here, and then I kill you. Which is just funny. Like, Starship thinks Carly's name is Kill Dad. It's like when Doctor Strange, when Caecilius was confused with Doctor Strange's name, and then goes on to call him Doctor. Which is, it's hilarious, man. It is funny. But we see Cliffjumper start shooting at Starship. Then we shift back to Optimus and the others. And Optimus is not doing too well. And Devastator starts to, I mean, he's basically jumping up and down to break into the arc, you know, just causing multiple earthquakes. This whole scene here is Optimus basically dying and apologizing for leading them to the Earth and away from Cybertron, and that Jetfire was right. And this whole scene, and I mean, comic book, and honestly, this whole series so far has just been riddled with G1 references, and this one so far has been riddled with a lot of 86 movie references, as you have RC say, you know, Optimus, you can't die, and, you know, Optimus being up on, like, the little, like, table thing. It's just a huge 86 movie callback, and the callbacks keep going as Optimus drops the Matrix and says, one of you must take it. And instead of like it being the 86 movie where he kind of passes it on to, you know, someone else, he just kind of drops it saying, you must take it, somebody here take it. And right here, some people might start to get lost here. So let me try and like hold you guys here because I'm confused as well, even, you know, rereading this. We have Sparky looking at the Matrix and says, if only there was a way, and Sparky goes on to say, my men, Jimmy, Spike. Whenever something bad happened to them, I'd always think if only I could have taken their place, if only it was me instead of them. And then says, maybe now this is my chance. And he tells Optimus, I know you're going to care for this world like I care for my boys. Watch over them for me. And when Spike wakes, tell my son I'm proud of him. And what you essentially have here is Sparky sacrificing himself, and he walks into the Matrix. And when that happens, Optimus gets completely restored to 100% power. Now, I know what you're saying. What the hell just happened? What did you just say? What did I just read? Honestly, I have no clue either. I mean, the Matrix has always kind of had mystic properties to a certain extent. Yes. And is this used 100% as a plot point for the story? Oh, absolutely, dude. I mean, but, you know, it's just a plot point here. It really is. And so Optimus is back at full power, and he says, you will not be forgotten, Sparky, and I promise I will protect your son and the Earth. And right when Devastator breaks in, Optimus literally rips off one of Devastator's fingers. And like I said before, unless you are 100% confident and have the firepower, you can take down a Combiner. And I mean, mostly the firepower, but that's what Optimus here is doing. And he just fully rips off one of Devastator's fingers. And amidst of the Autobots fighting the cons and Devastator looking at his hand, Optimus grabs the Ion Blaster and just starts firing away at Devastator with a fusion cannon and Ion Blaster. And dude, this is amazing. Remember when I said there were a lot of 86 movie references in this one? Well, the song, the great song, we brought this up back in issue 2. And I was saying how Optimus could have, you know, had the touch playing and all that. So we have this here. You literally look on the image here. It says, you know the song. Like, the touch is basically playing. Which is amazing, dude. The song is essentially playing. He's blasting his Devastator. Goes and rushes in. And you see Optimus just straight up drop kick Devastator. Which literally uppercuts him. And this whole page here is amazing, man. I love this stuff right here. This type of action, this type of sequence, inject this into my veins. It is amazing. So we shift back to Cliffjumper and Carly, and once again, right when it seems like Cliffjumper is about to die, and Starscream is mocking him, saying how it was a pleasure killing his whole clan, Carly shoots at Starscream in the chest, and again, very interesting moment here with the writing, as Cliffjumper now has the upper hand in this fight. And he goes on to say how he would always wonder what the feeling would be like to finally, you know, kill Starscream. And right when he's about to pull the trigger, he chickens out, which is just insane, dude. Now again, why does he do this? I mean, you can chalk it up to how he's just tired of the war, or whatever it may be. But to be honest, man, it really is just plot. Since Starscream is the main villain, we can't have that happen. We can't just have him die like that. So yeah, he doesn't do it. He chickens out, which I don't know, man. I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, literally after everything that has happened, you blink, and Carly brings it up how, like, he killed your clan, he's killed, you know, all your fellow Autobots, he's killed my dad, all this, and I don't know, man. If this was me, like, I'm just, he's going down right there. Like, I'm not even thinking twice. Like, yeah, you just gotta go. Like, it's gotta be done. So Because of these actions, Starscream ends up grabbing Carly and starts to squish her. And so we go back to the fight of Optimus versus Devastator, and Optimus driving around with the fusion cannon on top of his truck. That is dope. That is something completely ripped out of the Cybertron games. That is amazing. I love it. Please bring back the Cybertron games, Activision. But you have Devastator call Optimus a coward, and Optimus just nonchalantly, because he has a whole plan here, he says, "Is that it, Devastator?" Because Optimus is going at the top of this mountain here, trying to lure Devastator. And he keeps firing and tells Devastator, "Yeah, okay, perfect." And he challenges Devastator, says, "Come here, give me your best shot." And so Devastator falls for the bait, leaps, and Optimus, literally using the momentum of the leap, picks up and throws Devastator off the mountain, which is amazing and really smart on Optimus. As with this fall, 100% I mean, it's going to cause an earthquake, a huge one at that, but it'll also take down Devastator and the Constructicons will uncombine. And as Devastator's falling here, we have Starscream still squeezing Carly, and from Devastator falling, he also lands on Starscream. he just gets slammed by Devastator, which is amazing. And Cliffjumper grabs and saves Carly. And with this moment here, there's now some kind of resentment building, as Carly tells Cliff he could have ended it right there, but he didn't. And we see Starscream somehow still alive from just, I don't know how, like literally a whole combiner like just landed on him and he's still somehow alive. And this is where the fight kind of just finishes up here, as the Constructicons pick up Starscream and all the Decepticons start to retreat, and we see Soundwave start to go, and Optimus tells him that let us be done with this, and tries to basically say like, let's try and save our planet together, man. Like let's have like a truce. And like, we know Soundwave wasn't going to actually side with Optimus or the Autobots here, as he throws a punch and Optimus easily blocks it and says one of the most coldest lines ever. "Make no mistake, Soundwave, I desire peace, but I am no fool." And we see Thundercracker swoop Soundwave up, and all the cons completely start to retreat from this fight. Optimus says until next time. And at the bottom of the last page here, we see Spike wake up and write, "Where is my dad?" And that's where this first arc ends, and I mean, yeah, that's where it kind of ends. And I gotta be honest here, man, I think the first 5 issues were amazing, especially when it came to pacing. But this one kind of seemed weird with the pacing. It seemed like, really fast for what it was. I mean, this whole fighting sequence was amazing, but it did feel a little too fast. I feel like this needed one more issue to cover and wrap everything up.
Alright, Energon Universe Special, aka Free Comic Book Day for Skybound Comics, and we'll be only talking about the Transformers side of things because I believe this is the only one where we aren't too sure where it takes place in the story. I think this takes place sometime during Volume 3. So this story starts with a flashback of Megatron invading the Ark, which is a very common trope in Transformers stories, that when the Ark leaves, the Nemesis, aka the Decepticon ship, usually ends up following, and Megatron starts a siege in the Ark. It's really freaking cool. And we see Megatron in all his glory, who is just going on a warpath, saying, "I pity you Autobots. I see your struggle. You all fight with honor and passion." And he just goes up to Brawn and says, "If only your cause was just." But it is offensively naive, and boom! Shoots Brawn right in the chest, just rips the fusion cannon. It is amazing. Yo, rest in peace, Brawn. But this whole part is amazing. I love this every time when I reread this. But we see in the next page that the final throwdown of Optimus and Megatron is getting ready to go down. Both jumping at each other. Optimus tells Megatron to stop this madness, but Megatron says he will never. Which then we see in the next page, Optimus hits Megatron with a right hook, but then Megatron counters with an elbow and taunts Optimus, saying, "I can't believe that the leader of the Autobots is begging for an end," and goes on and says, "Your softness brought malaise to our precious home," which then Optimus begs Megatron again, asking him to stop. But Megatron continues to taunt Optimus, telling him your weakness was the downfall of Cybertron. And as Megatron is choking out Prime, we see Optimus resorting to a desperate measure, which we then see him charge up his Energon axe, and he completely slices off Megatron's fusion cannon arm, which is crazy, man. I love it. Every time I see this book, every time I read it, I just love this part. But we see Optimus kick off Megatron, which sends him flying off the Ark. And Starscream watches this whole fight go down, and when Megatron asks Starscream for his help, he tells Megatron, "Don't worry, you can rest now." And as Megatron is confused as to what's happening, we see Starscream being his treacherous self and shoots Megatron off the Ark. sending him into Earth's orbit, and says, "Let me relieve you of this heavy burden," which then we see Megatron flying into Earth's orbit, and with a snap of a finger, Megatron wakes back up, yelling Starscream's name, and we see Megatron fully back alive at Cobra La, which I believe Cobra La is from the G.I. Joe side of things, and basically they're kind of like an old civilization who are led by Golbolus. I'm gonna say that. Hope I pronounce his name right. If not, oh well. But they were featured back in the old G.I. Joe movie, but they have had Megatron posted up in Cobra La, I believe at the beginning of Cobra issue 1, if you guys want to go read that. But we see Megatron waking up in a panic and breaking free from his restraints. And you have the Cobra La scientists freaking out, trying their best to contain him, but it is too late. And Megatron puts his foot over these guys, asking them if they want to live, tell him where his limbs are. And the scientist says that we were only able to find one of them, which then we see Megatron be fair and keeping his word, which is weird, if I'm being honest. But he says, "Thank you, you may live," which then we see Megatron get his left arm back, which then we see Golbolus and his crazy looking beast thing. Again, I'm not too familiar with G.I. Joe, so please be nice to me. But we see him, "Do not let this beast escape," which then Megatron, being Megatron, smiles and says, "Ha, beast, so it shall be." And Megatron just charges in, smacking everyone around, which then we see Golbolus call Megatron an abomination, inorganic filth, and tells Megatron he belongs to him. And if you guys know who Megatron is, you know you do not tell him those 4 words, which then we see Megatron start to snap, saying belong, and in the next page, he charges up his iconic Energon mace and says, "Do you know who I am? I belong to no one!" And he just slams his mace on top of this dude, but we see Golbolus attack back at Megatron, throwing his electric trident in Megatron's eyes, which then he says he is mistaken, beast. But then Megatron grabs the trident, saying, "No, I am the leader of the Decepticons, and the leader of the true way, the only way," which then we see Megatron charge out of this place he was being held at, and diving into snow with a missing arm and a missing eye. Megatron mutters the words, "I am coming for you, Starscream," which that's how this story ends. It's short, but man, it's sweet. Oh, it's so sweet. Rereading this, I truly believe this does take place during Volume 3, because it wouldn't really make sense with Volume 2 wrapping up and being done. We haven't really seen them mention Megatron at all, except for Astro Train. So this has to take place during Volume 3, which we know will be a little bit of like flashback issues at the beginning. So, ooh, this is so good. We are back with issue 7. And a lot of people die in this issue, so get ready. So this picks up on Cybertron, which, yeah, awesome. We finally get to see some more Cybertron action, and we see a fire squad of Huffer, Cup, Warpath, and being led by Elita 1. And this team's really cool, you know, except for Huffer, because, I mean, Huffer sucks. But anyways, this fire squad is essentially trying to get inside a fortress for their mission, and they are overran and outmatched very easily as they are ambushed by one of the groups of these Decepticons we see are actually, in fact, the Combaticons, which is really cool to see. But they are trying to run inside this fortress, and they're just being overran by just all the fire, and Huffer ends up using all of his energy to put up a shield, tries to be useful by using a shield, but easily gets, you know, over encumbered by, you know, the firing and stuff, and dies. And I mean, whatever, it's Huffer. Huffer sucks. But bot by bot in the squad, they are getting packed up really easily by the Decepticons, and unfortunately Warpath dies, and unfortunately Cup dies, which really sucks, but not surprising considering one of the alt covers for, oh man, I want to say issue 9 has Shockwave on it, and we see a head of Cup, so kind of figured he was gonna die. But anyways, before he dies, he tells Elita to go in the building and save him and save all of us, which then we see Cup get shot in the head and unfortunately dies. But then Elita does end up going inside the building, and we see her looking around in this fortress area, and it's very just empty and barren. She goes around asking like, "Hello, is anyone here?" Which then she goes to the other room and sees a fellow Autobot, which seems to look like it's literally been skinned alive, which is brutal. And who that robot is, we are going to find out later in a bit, which then we pick up on the POV of the Decepticons on Earth that are alive. And man, this gets really good. So Soundwave basically has gathered all the Decepticons that were, you know, on Earth and alive from the, you know, from the beginning in the attack, you know, the Constructicons, the Cassettes, Thundercracker, and he's basically bringing a mutiny against Starscream,
which is really cool because Starscream he sucked as a leader.
And Soundwave just seems way more capable of a leader, and Soundwave brings that up, basically saying how they have been beaten by barely functioning Autobots since they've come to Earth. They've been beaten by humans. Is this how we are as Decepticons? Is this who we are? And says we should be conquerors. Rumble brings up that I know who would make it right, Megatron, and once again Starscream punches another cassette, and so Soundwave basically gives Starscream a choice. Either take this beating and step down, or take this beating and I'm going to keep beating you until your spark is gone. Which Starscream doesn't want to take this deal at all, and as Starscream is squirming saying how he's lying, and that he can bring the Decepticons back to glory, no one believes a single word Starscream says, and so this fight ensues. And I mean, like, yeah, Starscream puts up some of a fight here, but Soundwave just kicks the living crap out of him, dude. I mean, Starscream responds with, like, what about, co-leadership, Soundwave, we can still make this right, time to, all this, and Soundwave says, no, the time for talk is done. And the thrashing just continues, man. Soundwave just keeps pummeling Starscream and gives him a chance to yield, but Starscream doesn't, and so Soundwave gets shot by Starscream, so then Soundwave ends up headbutting Starscream, and then he sends out Laserbeak, and Laserbeak rips out one of Starscream's eyes, and Starscream's like, oh, that's cheating. And this is just brutal, man. But somehow Starscream gets up and says basically, I'm willing to forgive you, Soundwave, you can be put on the right path. But Soundwave already made his choice, and he walks up to Starscream and says, you kicked my Ravage, and he just rips out Starscream's spark and throws him off a cliff, essentially killing off Starscream, which is nuts, dude. I love this. I love that Starscream got what was coming to him. Soundwave goes to the other Decepticons and says that this component will help heal Ravage, but I will not just heal my own. We will rebuild together. We will conquer together. We will destroy together. Are you with me, brothers? And so all the Decepticons take a knee and start chanting Soundwave, which is amazing, dude. Soundwave is now the leader of the Decepticons, which this is amazing, man. I believe this isn't the first time Soundwave was the leader of the Decepticons. I believe he was in the Marvel Comics, but I still gotta go read those, to be honest, so I could be wrong. But we transition to Carly shooting a rifle, and we have RC interrupt Carly, basically just, trying to form a friendship, trying to get a conversation going. And so these two start talking, and Carly's, training with this rifle and shooting bottles at them, and RC asks if she could join, and RC just ends up blowing up the whole, training area. But RC brings up that Optimus always said that she was the best shot that he's ever seen, and she says that I wish I wasn't so good at it. And Carly is kind of surprised that RC is saying this because she says that it will help killing Decepticons, and it will especially help killing Starscream. And RC mentions that she can see Carly's eyes and that they have fire to them and not to let it consume her. She's basically saying that don't let revenge drive you too far off on the deep end. And I mean, I don't even think Carly has had enough time to grieve yet, and that's pretty crazy. She should be grieving with everything that has happened to her. But Carly tells RC that she doesn't know the first thing about her, and she also calls her RB, which is funny, Arby's. But RC apologizes to Carly and brings up that Carly reminds RC of herself when she was younger, and that her teacher was Ultra Magnus, which, boom, we see the city commander himself, and he looks dope. So RC brings up how Magnus saved RC when she was younger, and that he taught her how to fight and shoot when she was just a wee little bot, and that Magnus taught her everything that she knows now. And at the time, all RC wanted was justice and revenge, and that Ultra Magnus died because of RC's path of hatred and vengeance. And she's telling Carly basically that what I said earlier, that she needs to grieve still, but Carly just shrugs off this whole story and just says, cool story, and not really caring, which, okay, I guess. I mean, she just told a story about the city commander, but yeah, okay, alright, whatever. But it does suck that Ultra Magnus is dead, and I'm 99.9% sure that the bot we saw at the beginning with Lita 1 is Ultra Magnus. It looks like the same size and everything, so I'm pretty sure it's him. However, I could be wrong, but they do look similar, and it sucks that our boy was skinned alive. But we do see Cliffjumper and Jazz speaking with each other, and that Cliffjumper says that, he feels sorry, he feels weak that he couldn't pull the trigger to kill Starscream, and that Carly hasn't spoken to him since all of that went down. And Jazz, being the goat he is, comforts Cliffjumper, saying there is no shame not pulling a trigger, even in war. And Cliffjumper feels really awful about everything that happened, and Jazz tells him, well, to make you feel better, Optimus is having the same problem, which then we shift to Optimus talking to Spike, who I'm guessing has just been told or has been told about everything with Sparky and him sacrificing himself, and Optimus trying to speak to him, and Spike just says, I know it's not your fault, I just need time. And so Optimus and Ratchet do give Spike some space, and they are driving, and Ratchet brings up that Sparky did was his choice, and Optimus says that there is no way to explain that to Spike, and that Spike is too young to lose his family. And Optimus blames himself for all this, and that he has to make it up to Spike, But in a flash, Optimus sees a vision of some sorts of him holding what looks to be Spike when he was a baby. And Optimus ends up crashing in a tree and Ratchet takes him back to the Ark. And this is really interesting as Optimus sees a vision of Spike as a baby. Now, why would he see that? It seems like they are really tweaking and changing what the Matrix actually does. And it looks like Sparky's memories with Optimus are starting to merge, or simply Optimus has all the memories of Sparky. And it does feel like they're playing this fast and loose here. And I am curious to see how they progress this further. And it isn't necessarily a huge change with the Matrix, as the Matrix is a artifact, you know, that has wisdom, history, and strength. And those who are Prime wield the Matrix. And, you know, like I said, everything with the wisdom and history. But maybe they could be mingling around with Sparky's soul now with the Matrix. And now it's kind of merged together with the Matrix and Optimus himself. And that's why he's saying this. And they're just kind of merged together now from, you know, the history. I don't know. I might be reading too much into this here, but it is pretty cool that they're changing this. But we do go back to the Ark and we see the Goat and RC and Wheeljack trying to get Teletran 1 back up and running for repairs. But since Decepticons essentially merged Skywarp with Teletran 1, Skywarp won't give access to Wheeljack and he will have to resort to repairing everyone manually, and that takes a lot longer, and that he'll have to figure out a workaround for the time being when it comes to repairs. And Optimus walks in and tells Wheeljack to make haste and says, "We have the upper hand, but make no mistake, our initiative will not last long as the Decepticons reigns freely over this beautiful Earth." And man, these comics really do just have Optimus say the most amazing things. But Wheeljack says, if that's the case, we'll need a way to find the Decepticons and get a bird's eye view. And Optimus walks into a storage room of sorts of dead bots and parts, which shows parts of Jetfire's body, and says, "I have a plan for that," and tells Decepticons to steel themselves and says, "We are coming for you." Alright, so this picks up on Carly and Spike and RC at this lake area, and she brings him there to clear his head, and Carly is just trying to do a checkup on Spike, asking if he's okay, and Spike doesn't really feel anything. He's just numb from everything that has happened, and rightfully so. Jimmy got blown up in a spaceship, and Sparky sacrificed himself to save Optimus and the Autobots by merging himself with the Matrix. So with no family ties with him, he's just alone, and for him to feel this way is honestly how I would feel. And Carly mentions how the way Spike is feeling is a good reason why they should protect themselves, and now with the Autobots on their side, they can go get revenge. But Spike doesn't see it that way. And we also see Cliffjumper arriving here saying what's up, and Cliffjumper tries to make good amends with Carly, but Carly wants nothing to do with Cliffjumper, as she is still mad and has resentment for him. And the reason why is because Cliffjumper blinked in issue 6 when Cliffjumper was fighting Starscream and got the upper hand. Cliffjumper didn't pull the trigger on Starscream, so Carly is still upset by that. And so Carly walks away and Spike is there to comfort Cliff. Then we shift to Cybertron with Alita, and last issue we saw her charge into a fortress looking building, and she finds this bot who was basically skinned alive, and we thought this bot was dead, but that isn't the case here. We also talked about how we thought that it was Ultra Magnus. Some people also thought it was Grimlock, but it still, I don't know, it's most likely Ultra Magnus. It's just kind of hard to tell who we can see. However, we can see his head, and someone has the silhouette of Ultra Magnus's head, but due to him literally being skinned and tortured, it's tough to see who this is. But like I said, it's most likely Ultra Magnus, and my White Optimus theory gets trashed. But Alita's carrying Magnus out, and he tells Alita to put him out of his misery, and Alita basically says, "No, I came all this way to rescue you. However, if we do get captured, I will end both of our sparks." And that's where the Alita part of the story is stopped for now, which sucks, because I really want to know what her plan is with Magnus. But we do go back to the USS Henry Harrison on the Pacific Ocean, and these guys are just scrambling as they are getting completely blitzed by the Decepticons and their new leader Soundwave, which if you haven't checked out last video where he became the new leader, we'll have the link at the end of this video. But the Decepticons come crashing on into the ship, and Soundwave tells Thundercracker to not sink the ship yet, as they are not at their destination. And we see something very interesting here. As the people on the ship are evacuating, getting to lifeboats, Thundercracker grabs one of the Navy men, and as Thundercracker starts to squeeze this guy to death, he says, "Please don't hurt me, I have a family," you know, asking to be spared. And Thundercracker actually lets him go, and Thundercracker says, "I pity your fragility, small thing," and tells him to be on his way. And the reason why Thundercracker does this isn't like he's an Autobot now and he's fighting for good. It's not like that. It's because the Decepticons are so big and very powerful and have a lot of strength. So in Thundercracker's eyes, humans aren't even really on his radar in terms of things to worry about. But as the people that were on the ship are escaping, Soundwave comes in asking Thundercracker what is he doing, and Thundercracker brings up how they can't hurt us, and Soundwave basically says, yes, that is true. However, if we let these guys go and they get to safety, once they get to safety, they will ask for help and they will know where we were, and if the Autobots find out, then our whole plan is for nothing. And Soundwave says all of this, and they blow all the lifeboats up, like literally everyone. And Soundwave says, regrettably,
incredible but necessary. And man, this is so cool. As Soundwave and Thundercracker display that they aren't just evil for the sake of it, and Danny Warren Johnson has given these guys layers in terms of who they are and their motives instead of just, oh, I'm evil and I'm Decepticon, haha. But we shift back to the arc, and as Wheeljack is still struggling to use Teletran 1 due to the Decepticons merging Skywarp into Teletran 1, he can't really unfuse them without destroying Teletran 1, so they are in quite a pickle here as they need repairs in Energon, but they are low on Energon and Skywarp is in their way. So if they try to disconnect them, Teletran won't get destroyed. It's a whole thing. Optimus tells Wheeljack to open up the video logs, and as they see the video logs of Starscream and Soundwave merging Skywarp with Teletran 1, and Skywarp like pleading to like not for anything to happen, Wheeljack brings up how he is still their enemy, and Optimus, being the goat he is, says, yes, it is true, he's our enemy, but he is broken, which is something we have in common. And while that's going down, Carly steps in with an RPG saying broken isn't good enough and that dead is way better. And she intends to blow up Teletran 1, which is really dumb, but Optimus tells her that he knows Skywarp has done terrible things, but they still need him to help and heal the rest of the Autobots, and that they can still end this war. And Carly just kind of like, oh, you're right, but then she accidentally fires out the missile, and as the missile aims for Skywarp, RC literally comes in like as if she's like Blur, she has like super speed, and just tanks the rocket, like literally just eats it. And Skywarp just laughs and says, finally. And then he goes to repair Wheeljack's legs. Now, don't get confused here. It's not that Skywarp did that to help Wheeljack. I think he just did that just because he saw an Autobot get hit by like a missile. So that's pretty much it. But Optimus goes up to Carly, and as he starts to explain how Skywarp could be of use, she interrupts him and says, are you serious? This is going to turn into an Optimus teaching moment. And in my opinion, I think she should have let Optimus finish speaking, because I mean, you did accidentally fire off a missile. Like I don't know, like you did fire it off, and you know, RC got hurt in the process, so maybe should have let Optimus, you know, finish speaking. But as Carly storms out of the arc, she says, no, I'm done with this. And we go to Carly's van, and we see RC comforting Carly, and we see this really cool moment between these two as Carly asks RC why she didn't get repaired, and it's due to them being really low on Energon, and because of when the Constructicons were brought back to life, they used up pretty much all the Energon in the arc and Teletran 1, so they really are sparse on every sort of material they have, and that's why they really couldn't fix RC. And Carly asks RC why don't the Autobots act huge and powerful, and RC responds with how they were always like this, that they were scattered and lost before the war started on their planet, and how Optimus brought all of them together, and all he desires is peace above all else. And because Carly doesn't really know the burdens Optimus has gone through, RC says he doesn't speak of it often, but believe me, his losses could fill a chasm. And we have this cool panel of Optimus looking to the stars, and yeah, man, I don't know, Carly still hasn't had time to grieve, but she's off in the deep end. However, it is good that RC is there to help her like Ultra Magnus did for her. But we switch transitions to the bottom of the sea, and to the people who are theorizing on what Soundwave was looking for, you are going to be hyped. So Soundwave basically says Starscream has no vision, and his short-sightedness was only outpaced by his mindless need for violence. And now it is time to truly take over this rich planet, and that it's not a plan that will be done in a day, but it will succeed. It's the whole mindset of Rome wasn't built in a day, and he tells Scrapper and Hook to do what Soundwave told him to do, and we see the Nemesis come back, and boom, this is amazing. I know some of y'all were saying it was lost in sea, and here it is. But before we see what they do inside the ship, we shift back to Optimus on the Ark, which he is still experiencing visions of Spike when he was a kid. And the reason why that is due to the fact that when Sparky merged with the Matrix, it seems all of Sparky's memories are merging with Optimus and putting Optimus in Sparky's spot. I don't know, it's still really murky with what they are doing with the Matrix and all that, but we see someone saying, hello, is anyone there? And we see that Jetfire is back, but not really. Okay, so this is kind of creepy, I'm not gonna lie. So they were able to bring Jetfire back to life from Teletran 1, but due to them being really low on Energon, they only brought him back in his alt mode, but he can't move, nor can he see. He can just hear, which is really weird. And Jetfire asks Optimus why he didn't just let him rest, and Optimus says he wanted to, but Teletran 1 is struggling and they are low on Energon and use what was left for Jetfire, and they need Jetfire's alt mode to go and travel around the Earth and save it from the Decepticons. And so Jetfire says, what am I to you now, a husk? And he says he can't move, nor can he see. And as Optimus is walking away, leaving him to give Jetfire some space, Jetfire says, don't leave. And so Optimus stays and sits with him for a while. And this is pretty dark, man. Like, I honestly didn't know something like this was possible for Transformers and all that. And especially for our boy Jetfire just being just a transport vehicle. It is cool, though, that Optimus did stay with Jetfire, though, to comfort him. But we eventually shift back to the Nemesis. And as Soundwave explains his plan to funnel nuclear energy through the Nemesis, they hear a loud bang and knocking, and Thundercracker hesitates to open up the door, but once he does,
we see Astro Train, which is amazing, man. And Astro Train is in an all-out rage asking, where is he? And he grabs Thundercracker's face and says, I only ask questions once. And as Soundwave responds with, we do not know, Astro Train throws Thundercracker across the room and says, lies, lies, and says, you know how long I've been inside this prison. And he says he will have the one that put me here. And as Astro Train is hulking out, we find out that the person he is referring to isn't Starscream, but actually Megatron. And Soundwave tells Astro Train that once we find Megatron, that Astro Train can do what he wants to him once they find him. But for now, he has a mission for Astro Train to go and do. And this is very interesting. I wonder what Megatron did to Astro Train to piss him off and lock him up in the ship. But we shift back to the arc as they pick up Decepticon activity, and as Optimus rallies up the Autobots, Carly says there is no way they're leaving her behind. And Optimus, rightfully so, after trying to blow up Teletrain 1, says no, and says that she isn't a warrior. But RC brings up how she can make Carly an Iron Apprentice. Optimus shoots this down, saying that is only for Cybertronians, but RC says if she is willing to do it, then so is she. And so what an Iron Apprentice is, it's essentially a bond between two beings, one older and one younger, and it starts the beginning of a clan or a family, and it's what Ultra Magnus did for RC. So it's like a mentor and a student type of thing, where wherever the master goes, the student follows. But it really doesn't matter too much here, as Optimus tells RC to stay with Wheeljack anyways and to defend the Ark and Spike. And as they all cram into a container, Cliffjumper pilots Jetfire, and they are on their way to stop the Decepticons. We then go back to the Nemesis once again, and as they are powering everything up, Soundwave says they need the Nemesis antenna and it's time to call in reinforcements, which we see Shockwave, and that's how this ends. So here we are on Transformers issue 9, a whole month later, and we are back. And man, oh man, things get real spicy in this issue. So this picks up right after where we left off in issue 8, where the Autobots were on the ready to see what the Decepticon signal was, and we see Cliffjumper piloting Jetfire, who can't transform, but they see a bunch of energy readings in the area that they are at, and as they get closer, we see Shockwave talking to Soundwave and getting ready to initiate their plan, which is to open up a space bridge between Cybertron and Earth. And we see this big beam shoot up in the sky. As that is happening, we see the Autobots are looking at the vortex and wondering what is causing this big beam. And as they are going to check it out, they get hit and they crash onto the ground, and they crash bad. And man, poor Jetfire again. Like, bro was brought back to life, but he can't see nor can he transform or move. And then he gets clipped by this energy pulse, and now probably is dead again. But we see the Autobots get completely blitzed by the Constructicons and all the Decepticons as they start to open fire. And as we Optimus telling the Autobots to take cover, we see Cliffjumper at the top of the space bridge, who is confronted by Shockwave. And dude, let me tell you something. Shockwave is not someone to be trifled with. Like, think in every Transformers continuity, bro has always done some type of mischievous stuff. But we see Shockwave say the rabble rousers are still fighting back, I see. And as Cliff and Optimus are worried for what's to come next, Shockwave says we Decepticons have work to do, and goes on to say you Autobot scum are interrupting our glorious mission. And Soundwave chimes in and says we have succeeded, brother. And we see Shockwave transform into his gun mode, and Soundwave wields Shockwave as Soundwave says let us be done with this foolishness. And as Soundwave is about to pull the trigger, we see Ratchet come in and save Cliffjumper by sacrificing himself, which is honestly shocking, man. I really thought Daniel Warren Johnson was going to just kill off Cliffjumper, but it seems like he still wants to keep him in the story as of right now. But as Ratchet takes the bullet for Cliff, #RIP Ratchet, Optimus comes in and saves Cliff and sees Ratchet and is upset to see another Autobot offline. And Shockwave kind of taunts Optimus here, saying how nothing has changed for him and that he is still caring for the weak. And as Optimus rebuttals, saying, weak? Do you forget our last meeting, Shockwave? Shall I make you cry for mercy a second time? And Shockwave attacks Optimus, telling him to be silent. And we shift to Wheeljack and RC with Carly as they are on their way to the dam to fix the machine they built, I believe, back in issue 4 that could bring other Autobots back alive, with the help of Sparky and all that. That's how RC came back and Wheeljack. But we see as they are on their way, they are met and shot at by this little resistance group of guys with guns and blockades, and we learn to find out these are the same guys we saw back in like issue 2 or 3 that were led by Sparky, shooting at all the Cybertronians that move with it. It's very stupid. Like, these guys are stupid and irrelevant, but Carly is able to tell these guys that Wheeljack and RC are the good ones and they mean no harm, and Wheeljack says that is the Autobot promise. So we shift again to another point of view, which this happens quite a bit this issue, but we see Spike at the emergency room and talking with the doctor that did surgery on Spike, and we basically find out that Spike is not going to be able to walk again, but the doctor says to never say never, and anything can happen now since giant robots from space are here. And that is true, and this isn't the first time we see something like this before. I mean, like back in like G1 we saw Chip, who was in a wheelchair, and then in season 3 of I believe season 3, Return of Optimus Prime, we see Jessica Morgan, who was basically paralyzed from the waist down, but ended up having a exoskeleton to move around. And especially in the 86 movie, we saw Spike and Daniel use exosuits to move around in space. So we might get to see that here. I don't know what Daniel Warren Johnson is going to do here with the exosuits, or if Spike is just going to be in a wheelchair. But it would be pretty cool to see, you know, Spike in some type of exosuit or exoskeleton that can help the Autobots out. But they get interrupted here, and we see that they are getting interrupted by none other than Astrotrain. And it turns out his mission that Soundwave sent them out on was to retrieve Spike. And again, we have an interesting look here from Astrotrain, as he isn't blasting the place left and right, say like how Starscream has done before. And the doctor tells Astrotrain to leave and stop, as there are innocent people here. And Astrotrain basically says, look, I don't like to hurt people who are lesser than me, but I will gladly do it if I don't get what I want. And we see him point his gun to the hospital, but we see Spike come out and give himself up. And to Astrotrain, we see Astrotrain compliment Spike, telling him that Spike's bravery is inspiring and impressive, as he takes him and, you know, leaves off, which I gotta say is pretty cool to hear Astrotrain talk like this. And I feel like this is a lot better for Astrotrain than just to be, raw, I'm gonna kill you all, blah, blah, blah. Because we kind of got that impression last issue, like he just kind of seemed like a meathead. So it's cool once again to see some more depth for these Decepticons. But we shift back to the fight on the space bridge, and Optimus is literally getting jumped. Like, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, like he is getting jumped. But we see the Goat Jazz try and help the commander out, but Scrapper just straight up blocks him, and Shockwave picks up Optimus and tells him, you fought dirty last time, Optimus, but I have learned much since that day. And Shockwave just pile drives Optimus, bam, like just pile drives him right into the ground, which is just brutal, man. And this knocks Optimus out, and Shockwave is all happy and is like, I defeated Optimus Prime. You know, just pretty much boasting that he defeated Optimus. But we shift to Cybertron, which we pick up on Alita carrying this mysterious Autobot. I'm just gonna call this guy Magnus, because a lot of people, myself included, think it's Magnus. But we see Alita pinned by the Combaticons. But we saw, I believe, issue 6 or issue 7, we saw the Combaticons, you know, shooting at Alita 1 originally, before, you know, Cup and all, you know, nobody cares about Huffer, but like we saw those guys die and they were getting shot by the Combaticons. So we see Combaticons once again shooting at Alita, and we see Vortex kind of get the jump on Alita, and Alita's like, nope, and just smokes, like just smokes Vortex. And we see that she is still carrying Magnus, and she sees a bright light, and they go right to it, and it turned out Alita 1 went into the space bridge. So to all the people thinking that the fortress was Shockwave's lab, you would be correct. And to all the people that thought this whole Cybertron sequence was a flashback, you would be wrong. And I know a lot of people thought it was. I kind of thought it was, but I just, it would kind of suck if it was a flashback. So I am glad to know, because we see Alita 1 jump into the space bridge and shove Shockwave as she sees Optimus, and now Alita 1 and Ultra Magnus are on Earth. Alita is pretty confused on what's going on. We end up seeing the Combaticons also follow Alita into the space bridge, and we see Onslaught say, Combaticons merge to form, and Alita's like, nope. She grabs Optimus's ion blaster, blows up the space bridge, sending the Combaticons back into the space bridge and not letting them combine into Bruticus, and cuts off Brawl's body in half in the whole process, which is just brutal, man. And it sucks when you get to see Bruticus here, but to be honest, if they formed this story, would have just wrapped up just like that. Like literally just like that, because the Autobots who are injured and barely alive now have to go up against Bruticus. Nah, man. They would just lose. Also too, Vortex got smoked, so they would be missing like an arm, so I don't know how that would really work anyways. But we end up seeing Optimus, Alita, and Magnus pinned down. We also end up seeing the Moonbase Bros getting shot at, as they get, you know, they just end up getting, you know, fired at, and they get knocked out. And Alita 1's basically telling Optimus that, like, look, we need to like retreat, like we need to get out, we got to cut the losses and go. And Optimus is like, no, I don't want to. But Alita literally grabs Optimus and Magnus and says, we need to go, and we need to go now. And she tells Optimus to transform and roll out, and we see Optimus drive Magnus away as Alita shoots, like, while she's like riding Optimus. It's really cool, but also really extreme, because literally everyone except Optimus is just left there to basically die. Like, Jetfire is probably dead, like hashtag rip Jetfire again, and then Ratchet's dead, and then we just see the two Moonbase Bros left to rust. And as like Soundwave's about to go and tell the Decepticons to go chase after them, Shockwave tells them no, and that they should focus on other things for the time being. And we see that, you know, that Cliffjumper and the Goat are left behind, and Shockwave says, oh look, presents from Primus, as we see an injured Cliffjumper and the Goat being taken by the Decepticons, as Shockwave said they can be used for experiments. Very painful experience. And we just see them drag Jazz and Cliffjumper away, and Cliffjumper screaming, no. And this is just gruesome, man. I mean, like, this is why you don't mess with Shockwave. Like, I ain't even like a huge Shockwave fan, but like, man, like, you don't mess with this guy. Like, especially when he says something like this. This whole sequence is just gruesome. The Autobots bit off more than what they could chew, and we kind of had that feeling when we saw that last issue. Like, they didn't know what they were about to go up against, because I thought originally they were just going to go up against like Megatron, but no, it was the whole Decepticon fleet. And yeah, it ended terribly. And so now you have Optimus, Magnus, and Alita retreating back to Wheeljack and RC. It just gets crazy, man. It gets crazy, and we're not even done yet. I really just hope the GOAT lives. But we switch to Astro Train and Spike, and they're having this conversation here as Spike is asking what that big beam in the sky is, and Astro Train literally says, like, basically says, yeah, it's a space bridge. We're going to use that to funnel energy and resources from Cybertron to Earth, and suck all the energy and resources from Earth into Cybertron, so Cybertron can, you know, not be a dead planet anymore. And as Spike is like, wait, that's my planet. Like, what are you doing? And Astro Train basically says, tough luck, dude. You know, better luck next time. And Astro Train says your planet will be tortured. Like, he'll just be blunt. Like, yeah, your planet's going to be tortured. Tough luck, dude. Maybe in the next life. But we see something latch on to Astro Train. And to those wondering if you thought what you guys saw in the last issue at the beginning of the little island beach area looking thing, you would be completely right. As Astro Train crashes into the ground from whatever latched onto him, knocking him out, we see Beachcomber to the rescue, man, and saves Spike. And I know y'all were hyped to see this man return, because we kind of just saw him lurking back last issue, but we didn't know if he was dead or not, or maybe if he fell from the Ark when the Ark was crashing. But this could mean that other mini-bots like Windcharger and Cosmos, all those guys have already been on Earth longer than the Autobots, or maybe they, you know, fell out of the Ark, or whatever the case may be. But Beachcomber comes in and saves Spike, and that's where this issue ends, man. Like, oh my god. We are finally back with Transformers, and man, this issue is bodacious. So this picks up on a flashback from millions of years ago when the Ark was in the Earth's orbit, and we see Skyward pick up Beachcomber and throw him out the Ark, which has a big hole, probably how the cons were able to board the Ark in the first place. But we see Beachcomber get thrown out of the ship, and he lands on the moon. We find out Beachcomber was on the moon for the entire time the Autobots crashed on Earth, and that they were in stasis for millions of years. So literally you just have Beachcomber just sitting on the moon, staring at the Earth for millions of years, which is crazy, man. And eventually when Apollo 11 landed on the moon, Beachcomber hitched a ride to Earth by, you know, grabbing onto the ship, which is how you see Beachcomber back on Earth. And we see this nice little wholesome page of Beachcomber just enjoying nature and being happy, which is a trait of Beachcomber, being this kind of peacekeeper, not really wanting to fight in any sort of war and enjoying nature. And we see that here, but then we see him find the Ark, which he goes inside and turns on Teletran 1, and Teletran 1 asks to begin repairs, which Beachcomber didn't do. And when Spike asks him why he didn't, he explains basically that as long as the Autobots and Decepticons are offline, Earth could be spared from the violence, and that the Autobots and Decepticons could sleep forever, which could hold peace. And when Spike asks Beachcomber if he's been alone since then, he responds with not alone, as we see some squirrels and wildlife. And again, this is really cool to see someone like Beachcomber get put into the limelight here and really shine his core characteristics of being a pacifist who loves nature, wildlife. So again, hats off to Daniel Warren Johnson, but we do find out that Astro Train is now tied up and he can't really move, which is kind of crazy considering how big Astro Train is here. But it's cool that Beachcomber was able to use like leftover junk and rusted chains to hold him down. But what's even more crazy is Astro Train is just threatening Beachcomber, you know, saying, let me go or else I'm gonna kill you, all that. And Beachcomber just offers him Energon. Like, bro, Beachcomber, calm down, man. You don't want Astro Train breaking out and just beating the living crap out of you, dude. But Beachcomber gets caught up to speed as to why Astro Train had Spike and what the Decepticons were planning to do, which is for Shockwave to basically cut Spike open and see how humans operate. And Beachcomber gets a little startled here when he is told this is all Shockwave's plan, and that Shockwave plans to harvest Earth completely and suck it dry of all of its resources. Which then we shift to Shockwave and Soundwave talking, and this part is kind of crazy because Shockwave is talking to Soundwave, telling him that the Constructicons have repaired the portal to Cybertron, and sees Soundwave is trying to bring Ravage back online, and Shockwave immediately snatches Ravage's corpse out of Soundwave's hands, telling him to recycle Ravage and you could build stronger versions of his Recordicons. And right before Shockwave is going to dump Ravage into the trash, we see Shockwave is blinded by something, which he then tells Soundwave to follow him. And we find out Shockwave is starstruck by the ocean life and sees a big, huge whale. And honestly, this is pretty funny. Out of all the things he has struck, it's a whale. But we see on the next page that the feeder is prepped and ready, and Shockwave says good, which then we see the exact same whale in ocean life, sadly, that Shockwave was happy to see is now being sucked in and being used as fuel for the space bridge. And this is just sad, man. I mean, this just took a huge left turn. But I expect none less of Shockwave. Like, I don't know. Like, something like this is totally just like Shockwave's alley. Like, oh, cool. Wildlife looks cool. Anyways, let's just use all of them for fuel. But we finally get to see more Optimus and Alita. As in the next page, we are at the dam. We saw back, I think, issue 4, where Sparky, Wheeljack, and Ratchet build this generator that can repair other Autobots. And we see RC greet Alita 1 and Optimus, and as well as Ultra Magnus. So now it's officially confirmed our city commander is still alive. And this has me hyped, man, because I love Ultra Magnus, man. But we see a nice little reunion of these two, and we see Optimus break the bad news to Wheeljack that Ratchet did not make it back. And as Optimus goes to comfort Wheeljack, Wheeljack just kind of walks away and says that he needs a moment to grieve. And that's what he ends up doing, grieving for his friend. And I know I didn't really talk about it much in terms of the last video, but I do feel like Ratchet's death was kind of pointless. Like, it just didn't really feel like any of the shock factor. So, I mean, it is cool that we do see some character development with like Wheeljack and Optimus when it comes to Ratchet's death, but I don't know, man, it kind of felt like a waste of death. But we pick back up on the moon base bros, who unfortunately are not doing too well as they can barely see and function. And then we see Shockwave enter the room as he starts to taunt Autobots, telling Cliffjumper and the Goat Jazz that at least Decepticons don't leave their soldiers to their enemy for their collections. To which then we see Soundwave and Thundercracker leaving the room as Shockwave begins to torture the moon base bros. And man, I hope they make it through, but I have a feeling that one of these guys are not going to make it, which sucks, man, because I love these two as a duo. Anyways, we see Soundwave asking to speak to Thundercracker in private, which then we see Onslaught talking to Brawl, which is wild to me that this dude is still alive after getting his lower body chopped off last issue from the space bridge collapsing. But we see Onslaught listening to Soundwave and Thundercracker's private discussion. And once again, we see Thundercracker showing sympathy. But this time, it's for the Moonbase Bros, saying that they are prisoners of war and what Shockwave is doing isn't honorable. And Soundwave basically tells him that, yes, Shockwave's tactics are brutal, but we need someone like Shockwave. Shockwave is a major need, and if they want to play their cards right, when it comes to world domination, they need Shockwave. And when Thundercracker asks, when can they start to go back and save Skywarp, Soundwave shoots it down immediately. It reminds Thundercracker that he is a soldier of the Decepticon army and that his life belongs to Soundwave. And it's best for Thundercracker to not forget that. So although the Decepticon side of things, they are winning right now in terms of like the war, some people are still on edge, and we have Soundwave with him being on edge due to him being the new leader, and as well as Thundercracker wanting to save Skywarp, which is a really cool dynamic with these guys. Again, they're evil, but like depth. It's really cool. But we pick back up on the Autobot side of things, and we see Optimus and Alita having a very deep back and forth discussion. And Alita mentions how what they have done to Magnus means he will do the same to Jazz and Cliff. And Optimus suggests that they should go and save them. Alita mentions how it won't be easy, and how it took an eternity to save Magnus, and although yes, she did save Magnus, many Autobots died along the way. She tells Optimus that they needed him, and when Optimus tells her that he was trapped on Earth, Alita tells Optimus that no, they needed him back before he left, before he decided to leave Cybertron, and that now Cybertron is nothing but ruled by the Decepticons, and they are losing Autobots one by one. And I mean, Alita makes a good point here, but I do agree with Optimus as he had no other choice. They were losing the war bad, and I mean like very bad. We learned that in Void Rivals that basically the Autobots never really had a winning chance. And for Optimus to leave, although yes, it was kind of risky, for him to leave and go and explore to other planets to find more Energon and kind of take Cybertron back with a tactical retreat, I do think it was the right decision, but I do see where Alita's coming from, because while Optimus is gone, when he's the leader of the Autobots, all the Autobots that stayed to defend Cybertron and Iacon, they're just losing the war even more because they're down men, they don't have Energon, they don't have the resources. It's really tough. I would love to know you guys' thoughts. Are you guys Team Alita or Team Optimus? Let me know down below. But we pick up on the next page where Soundwave says, "My brothers, it is time." And Shockwave is completely hyped here, like he's like all giddy, as he mentions that gathering all the planet has to offer with such small tech as this world would take only a century, and that Cybertron is on the brink of devastation. And as he starts to activate the space bridge again, he says, "Our planet reeks with thirst," and we see Cybertron being ported to Earth's orbit, and we see Beachcomber and Spike see Cybertron
as Shockwave says, "Let the harvest begin." And that's how this issue ends. And man, what a great issue, and what a great reference. I mean, at this point, having the space bridge be used to transport Cybertron to Earth's orbit is one of the staples of the Transformers mythos. It makes sense since Volume 2, which is what we are currently on, is called Transport to Oblivion, which was also the episode name for G1 and the first time we ever saw the space bridge in Transformers before.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with Transformers, and this issue is amazing. So this picks up on the events of the last issue where Cybertron is brought into Earth's orbit and is basically funneling energy from Earth to Cybertron. We see Beachcomber surfing on water, kind of scouting out the area, which looks dope. And we see someone say, "Do you remember the first time we met?" And we realize that the person that is saying this is RC. She is talking to Ultra Magnus, and RC feels guilt for leaving her master behind. But to be fair, she didn't really know he was alive at this time, being tortured by Shockwave. We did see Elita 1 walk in, and she makes this comment to RC saying, "It doesn't matter what he does or doesn't get. You made a choice, you abandoned the cause." And before she could finish her sentence, RC just straight up decks Elita. Like, just straight up just decks her for what she said. And RC tells Elita, "You do not know me." And this is just one of the things we have seen so far in this story on how different Elita is in terms of a leader. But we see Carly ask what happened to Magnus, and RC tells her that Magnus was a victim of Shockwave and his experiments. And Carly responds asking, "Is that the same Shockwave that has Jazz and Cliffjumper?" And RC tells her, "Yes, it is." And so we see Optimus ask Wheeljack, how is Magnus's repairs coming along? Which basically he explains that without Ratchet doing all this, they will pretty much use up all of their Energon reserves to just bring Magnus back to full health, and that they could instead bring other warriors back online. Which then we see Magnus jump into this conversation, telling Optimus that he must be part of this new resistance and that he wants to fight. I really like how gung-ho Magnus is on getting his get back against Shockwave and the Decepticons, but we're just gonna have to wait and see. So we switch over to the Decepticon side of things, which then we see Soundwave talking to Shockwave, telling him that the portal back to Cybertron has been repaired, in which we see Soundwave ask if he can repair his dear Ravage, which then Shockwave, being a dick, just shoots down immediately, telling Soundwave that, you know, there's bigger fish to fry, basically. I mean, like, this is just a dick move by Shockwave. Let him revive his damn Ravage, man. But we see Shockwave enter the portal, which we see the rest of the Combaticons, and it's really cool to see them here again. And it's also funny that they colored Blastoff, his like forehead, as an eye instead of his eyes. It's like a G1 episode error. I don't know. Really funny. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but basically what's going on here is the Combaticons are getting very impatient as they are asking Shockwave if they can enter the portal and see what this other planet is like, you know, Earth, and knowing the status on Onslaught and Brawl. And it's still crazy to me how Brawl is missing half his torso and yet he's still kicking. But Shockwave shoots them down immediately, telling him to be silent and calling them dogs and to not worry about such matters. And here we see Shockwave acting as this mad scientist yet again, as he's marveled at all the power that is being displayed from them harvesting the Earth and going to Cybertron. And yeah, Shockwave can't be trusted, man. But we switch back to Wheeljack and Optimus, and they are in the final phase of launching their assault on the Nemesis, as they end up deciding to go and attack the Nemesis and basically blow it up, since it's the connection port between Cybertron and the Earth. And Elita mentions how it won't be easy considering what they saw what Shockwave can do, and how it will be hard to rescue Cliff and Jazz. And again, people here might disagree with Elita here, and it shows how different Elita and Optimus are, as Optimus' whole plan here is to really just rescue Jazz and Cliff, saying that they have to go rescue their warriors, which then Elita snaps at Optimus, asking him to rescue our warriors. What happened when the great Optimus Prime left, and it was all up to Elita to save all the people on Cybertron and all the soldiers that were being ground to death by Shockwave and the Decepticons. And we saw this kind of back and forth last issue on how different they are in terms of leading, but Optimus calmly responds to Elita, saying he understands her anger, but Jazz and Cliff and the Earth are in mortal danger, and that they must save them and the planet. And as Optimus says this, Elita rebuttals, asking him what about Cybertron, and what about leaving it to Shockwave again, except this time with more energy, and that it would be a really bad move for them to just fully abandon Cybertron and the other Autobots on the planet. And I really do think Elita 1 here does have good intentions in terms of being a leader, but I think she's thinking too small here, as Optimus is kind of looking at the whole grand, you know, scheme of things, as he wants to save the humans, he wants to save his soldiers, and he wants to prevent another planet falling to how Cybertron did with the Great War. Whereas Elita just kind of wants to go back and save her soldiers on Cybertron and fully put down Shockwave. It's really interesting. I just think Alita is just thinking too small here, as Optimus kind of wants to prevent a whole other catastrophe, that being Earth. But we shift to RC and Carly, and RC seems a lot more colder now, saying that the Decepticons don't deserve to exist. And as Carly's hearing her say all of this, Carly has a look of concern similar to what RC did to Carly back a couple of issues, and I really do like this character development that Carly is getting, as she's now showing concern of how extreme one's mindset is if it's all just devoted to revenge, whereas that's exactly how she was a couple issues back, and it was RC trying to reel her back in by being, you know, an Iron Apprentice and all that for Carly. So it's just really cool to see how now the tables have turned. But we see Alita walk in and tells RC that it's still good to see that she still has a fire inside her. And we go back to Optimus, who has a flashback of him and Ratchet. And I really like how in this like flashback, it kind of has the same render look as the old Marvel comics. Just a cool little, you know, detail they did. I really like it. But a flashback of Optimus and Ratchet, kind of reminiscing on the earlier days on Cybertron. And when Alita asks Optimus what he is doing, this part here I really don't like when it comes to Alita, as Optimus responds with, he was thinking of an Autobot who is now gone. And Alita responds with, add him to the pile of the dead, I suppose. And Optimus tells Alita that Ratchet said, I was too concerned with this world, but I brought this war to them and they need us now, more than ever. And Alita simply responds with, we all have our own problems, Optimus. Which she kind of just like brushes off the whole thing he said, but Optimus just calmly says that is true. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, that's kind of just like a dick move by Alita, just like, oh, anyways, we all have our own problems, man. but Optimus says that he has this feeling that in order for them to survive, they will need the humans as well. Which then Alita asks him if a bull rush on the Nemesis is the move, and if it is, it won't work. But Optimus asks Alita, among all the Autobots, who has teleportation abilities, which then Alita responds with none, which is true, but Skywarp's coding has allowed them to go and teleport, and that he is willing to help them. And to anyone who is really confused as to why Skywarp is like helping the Autobots now, it's basically because like in the first volume, we literally saw Starscream and Soundwave tear Skywarp apart and merge them with Teletran 1, so now he's just kind of like, yeah man, Decepticons aren't really all that, they just left me here. So he's just kind of helping the Autobots. I wouldn't say he's an Autobot per se, but he just really doesn't like the Decepticons right now because of what they did to him. And I don't blame him, bro, because that's like really messed up. Like that's like Shockwave-esque like torture for what they did to Skywarp. But as they are all finally getting ready to get geared up for this mission, basically what we learn here that the plan of action is a search and destroy type thing. They're going to go search for Jazz and Cliffjumper, rescue them, and they're going to destroy the Nemesis by using explosives. It sounds like a really good plan on paper, but what's also nice here is there's gonna be two teams. There's gonna be Optimus Prime, Alita, RC, and then they'll have Ultra Magnus and Wheeljack as backup. And we see that Carly wants to go, but Optimus and RC deny this request, and that RC promises to save Cliffjumper, and they go on their assault. We shift back to Beachcomber and Spike here, who have kind of just been weighing out their options on how to help, which Beachcomber doesn't really want to anyways. He believes that there really is nothing to do, and that it's best to go find another quiet area on this planet before it basically just, you know, gets destroyed. And I also do love here how Astro Train is just still like chained up and like asking to be released and to like fight Beachcomber. But we see the next page, we see a deer get vaporized, which reminds Spike of when Optimus stepped on the deer and how meaningful that moment was for him and Optimus. Which then he tells Beachcomber that he understands how he feels and how it feels it is wrong to fight, but that he thinks that he doesn't have to, but they just can't run away. And this whole moment here is really dope, and I really love how Daniel Warren Johnson is threading these earlier events that were impactful to Spike and Optimus and bringing it back for Spike to rise up to the occasion. Hats off to DWJ as always. But we shift to the Nemesis, which we see the Moonbase Bros getting tortured by Shockwave, and Jazz, being the goat that he is, really isn't listening to anything Shockwave says, which then Shockwave slaps Jazz, telling Jazz that please do not smear your bravery with musical platitudes, which then we see Shockwave go over to Cliffjumper, who looks a lot more rough than Jazz, and Shockwave says, if I want to see what you've experienced in this new world, I can just take it from the source. Which then we see Optimus arrive, telling Shockwave that he will do no such thing and to drop the tool. And we see Optimus release Jazz and Cliff, and while he is doing that, Alita comes into the room telling Optimus that the charges have been planted, and we see, and that this plan is going to start to crumble really fast, as RC walks up to Shockwave and starts to taunt him, asking him how does it feel to be on the other side, when Optimus tells RC to stop and telling her to remember how far along she has come, which then we see Shockwave just sidekicks RC as Optimus is telling her all that, calls them fools, and takes Cliffjumper as hostage, and tells him to not take another step, which then Alita calls Shockwave a coward, and Shockwave runs out of the room, which we see in the other room are the Constructicons, which then Shockwave tells them to combine into Devastator. And just as all hope seems to be lost, Optimus tells Alita to not worry as they have backup, which we see the city commander and Wheeljack on the ready to foil the Khans' plan, just for only to see Magnus stare into Shockwave, remembering what Shockwave has done to him all these years. He's been tortured and literally skinned alive. And Magnus tells Optimus that he's sorry and that he can't do this, which then we see Ultra Magnus run away, which then we see Shockwave laugh and says he broke his mind and now he will destroy everyone's bodies here. And that's how this issue ends. So this picks up after the events of issue 11 where the Autobots were left stranded and Magnus left, but we see Carly monitoring the situation back on the Ark and sees just how screwed the Autobots are with Shockwave and the Decepticons. And as the Autobots are scrambling and doing their best to hold back the fire, we see Wheeljack ask Optimus what happened to Magnus. And as they're all confused on to why Magnus left and ditched them, we see Carly charge her van up and go through the portal and just charges in and hits Soundwave, letting go of Cliffjumper and dropping Shockwave. And we have this wholesome moment where we see Carly rescue Cliffjumper and we see Carly apologize for not being there for him, but this wholesome moment just gets destroyed by freaking Devastator. And dude, okay, I gotta calm myself down here because this issue's nuts. But we see Cliff and Carly go flying from Devastator, but Optimus rallies up the Autobots and says, Autobots, while they are distracted, let's go and get our fallen brother. And we just see Optimus point and yell and say, charge! It's freaking amazing, dude. Oh my god, it's so good. But we see Cliff get Carly out of the, van because it's all messed up, and he tosses her aside, and Cliff gets pinned by Devastator's foot, which then we see Devastator kick Cliffjumper and the Rebel of the van into the portal. And this part here is really funny. So we see Cliffjumper and the Rebel of the van go into the portal, and on the other side of the portal, we see the Combaticons who are all like, Combaticons, let's go and get into this fight, and boom! They just get gut checked by the Rebel, and Cliff... it's hilarious, man. They literally get like gut checked by Cliff and the Rebel. But we shift back into the battle on Earth, which we see Devastator laughing, but Optimus jumps behind Devastator, lets the fusion cannon rip on him, and jumps down and tells Alita now, which then we see the couple combo go into effect as Alita shoots out a grapple hook, wrapping around Devastator's legs, making him fall on the Harvester, and yes sir, what a dope combo from these two. But we see the Harvester get destroyed, and Shockwave is in panic, but we see Wheeljack say that Cybertron is getting pushed back, but the beam from the Nemesis is still active, meaning Cybertron is basically moving back into its galaxy, but it's still harvesting Energon. And we see Shockwave running into the portal saying he will bring reinforcements and that everyone will pay for what they have done. And dudes, buckle up because we ain't done yet. So we see Optimus charging in after Shockwave, telling Wheeljack and Carly that it was him who left Jazz and Cliffjumper behind and that he will not leave them again. And we see Vortex and Swindle and Shockwave talking, and now Shockwave says, do away with this pest and let's get back. We see Optimus come in, taking Vortex as his first victim, smashing him into the ground, shooting Swindle and knocking over Blastoff. The three of them get knocked and they run away like the cowards they are, which then we see the long awaited, at least for me, since we saw it earlier in this volume, the final rematch between Optimus Prime and Shockwave, which then we see Optimus taunt Shockwave, saying, come on then, Shockwave. And we see Shockwave threaten Optimus, saying if he takes another step, he will shoot Cliffjumper. But let me tell you, man, it doesn't matter what you say, because Optimus shoots off Shockwave's arm, telling him, is this all you do, Shockwave? Mentioning Ratchet, Magnus, life. And as Shockwave is standing there missing his arm, Optimus continues to talk and says, all you do is take away what is good. And he gets on top of Shockwave and starts wailing on him over and over and over. But what's interesting here is we see Optimus have another vision of Spike, but this time a more twisted version of it, which looks to me some more mechanical wires and like around Optimus's hands. They look all jacked and it's all surrounding around Spike. It looks really nuts, dude. But we shift back to reality and Optimus grabbing Shockwave's head, and this part looks crazy here, son, because Optimus is at his breaking point, his eyes turning purple, and is literally using his hands to cave in Shockwave's head, and the match is over. Optimus Prime destroys Shockwave after literally going demon mode. It's crazy. This whole sequence is just
crazy. And we're not done. We're not done. And as Optimus defeats Shockwave, we see regret from Optimus looking at the fusion cannon arm saying, "What have I done?" Which then we see Alita 1 walk through the portal, telling him it's nice to see him back to his old self during the war, and that it's really good to see him as his older self. And we see Optimus immediately say, no, that he isn't like that anymore, and that something came over him, and he doesn't know what that was. And now I have a theory on what this was, but we'll circle back to that at the end of the video. But we see next page that the portal is sending Cybertron back to its place in the galaxy, and that it's time to go home. But suddenly, someone here makes a drastic decision as the portal explodes, and the person who shot it was Alita 1, telling Optimus that he is home on Cybertron. And as Optimus and Cliffjumper are confused as to what's happening, Alita tells Optimus that they needed him on Cybertron, and the Resistance needed him, and that all the Energon Shockwave has harvested can be used by them. And we see Optimus shocked, telling her no, not like this, and Optimus tries to set off the charges that Alita planted, but Alita tells him that she never planted the charges in the first place, and that Earth has so much to give, and look at all the Energon they have harvested. And Optimus tells her that the Energon taken by Shockwave is wrong, and basically tells her that, are you seriously willingly enough to use the Energon Shockwave harvested out of malice and blood to refill Cybertron? Because in my eye, Alita 1 is no better than Shockwave at this point. But we see Alita basically reply with, yes, when it's dying of thirst, and that she didn't want to force his hand, but too many have died at this point. And with no response, Optimus does what needs to be done, and says Earth needs me, and Earth needs us. Which then we see Alita plead to Optimus to not do what he's about to do, which he's aiming at the Energon reserves. And Optimus tells Alita that he is sorry, which then we see Optimus shoot at the Energon Harvester and all of his reserves, which cause a huge explosion, knocking everyone back. Alita responds to Optimus saying, "You chose Earth over us," which then we see parts of Cybertron and the Harvester falling down to Earth and Optimus falling into orbit, which then he says, "If this is the end of my spark, then I thank the Primes that this will be my last sight," as he stares into the sun and the Earth's orbit. But do not fear, as a voice says, "I know, Optimus, this place reveals new beauties every moment." And we see Beachcomber coming to the rescue. Yes! It's so good. He saves Optimus with his surfboard, and dude, Beachcomber is literally shooting the freaking girl while saving Optimus, and this is amazing. I told you guys, this issue was crazy good. But we see Optimus looking to Cybertron as they both leave, and he says, "What have I done?" And again says, "What have I done?" As we see a huge piece of Cybertron falling into the ocean, as Cybertron is in even worse shape than it was before. And that's how this issue ends, fellas. I think this was my favorite issue of the series, if you couldn't tell. It was very impactful, and it leaves a lot to be desired in a good way as we look forward to Volume 3. And I think Volume 2 is definitely my favorite between the two. But I do miss, like, Daniel Warren Johnson's art style from Volume 1. I think if they use this art style from this volume, like, a lot of stuff would have been more impactful. Not to say that Corona's art style is bad, because it's far from being bad. It's really good. I just kind of like the DWJ's style a little bit more. And I believe in Volume 3 we'll have a new artist as well, so it'll be interesting to see what they cook up as well for Volume 3. But I really liked what Daniel Warren Johnson was cooking up for this volume, and specifically what he was cooking up for Optimus Prime and his character. As in the beginning, we didn't really see him all that different, but as each issue went on, he was forced to do a lot of things he didn't want to do, like with Jetfire and leaving behind Jazz and Clifton, which I guess if you look back at it, it's not really Optimus's fault. It was more of Alita telling Optimus to go and leave them behind. And speaking of Alita 1, I know some of y'all were kind of down on my neck for siding with Alita 1 a little bit. I was just siding with her a little bit because I could understand how she feels being left abandoned and being the only one on Cybertron to really rally up the rest of the Resistance. But she lost me with this issue, man. Forcing Optimus's hand by attempting to harvest the Earth dry. She's no better than Shockwave in my opinion. And it sucks that this ends this way, because I feel like those two are like the unstoppable force. Like when they're a duo, like, oh my god, like they took care of Devastator like that, bro. It was like it was nothing, which is crazy. And I know some people might, start to side with Alita 1 for some reason, but you gotta understand, with Optimus's eyes, the war is over. Like, you know what I mean? The Autobots lost on Cybertron, but like now the war is on Earth. Like, why would you try and lose another planet for just a small chance of resurrecting your old planet. It's just, you know what I mean? I don't know. Alita's character definitely went off on the rails, but like, oh my, it was really good writing. I really liked how Warren Johnson did Alita 1. This whole volume to me just seemed like many choices Optimus Prime had to make for the greater good, like killing Shockwave, like blowing up the Harvester, like betraying Alita 1. And I want to talk about this real quick, going back to the Shockwave fight, as we see Optimus starting to pry into Shockwave's head, basically choking him out, is he gets the spike vision. And again, these visions, the way Warren Johnson's doing it is very fast and loose, but I think we're going to finally start understanding what he's going to do here, as the last vision looked a lot more twisted, and we see his eyes turn purple, and he looks at the fusion cannon arm saying, you know, something came over him. What if this is the idea of like Megatron's like arm, like, you know what I mean, starting to like corrupt Optimus Prime? I know it's kind of a reach, but think about how they're doing the Matrix, right? Like Sparky was able to go into the Matrix, and now Optimus basically has all of, like, you know, Sparky's memories. So it's not too far-fetched that both of these things are just kind of corrupting Optimus and not making him who he is. But it was really cool to like literally see Optimus Prime basically see red. I mean, his eyes were purple, but he was seeing red, reach a snapping point, and just said, I'm done with you, Shockwave. Like, I am just done. It was awesome. And the whole thing with like the hands being different, and Alita saying like it's good to see him back to his old self. I don't know what they're going to do for Volume 3 when it comes to like flashback moments, because we do know Volume 3 is going to be a little bit more flashback moments and Starscream stuff. So we'll probably take a break on the Autobot side of things for Volume 3. But I wonder if like they're going to try and switch it up with like Optimus Prime and Orion Pax, because everyone knows, you know, Orion Pax is Optimus Prime, he gets the Matrix, rebuilt by Alpha Trion, you know, whatever it is maybe. But for the most part, he's always been like a cleric, you know, a librarian, all that. I wonder if they're going to do something different here, and like maybe he was just like kind of like a warrior, a gladiator. I believe, oh man, I can't remember, but I think it was Transformers Animated. He had a whole different backstory, like he was part of the army, something like that. So maybe that's what they're going to do here, like he was actually a soldier. I don't know. I'd be down for whatever. I am really down with the writing going into Volume 3. And also too, another question I have is like, where's Cliffjumper? Is Cliffjumper dead? Because like we didn't see Beachcomber grab him. So either Cliffjumper's on Cybertron or he's dead, because he just got burnt up going to like the orbit. I don't know. And also too, we didn't have like a Magnus cameo, which is a little bit surprising. I thought he'd kind of like come in, you know, have like a little page of being like, oh, it's all I ever my ways. But maybe I guess that's for Volume 3 or Volume 4. But yeah, that's where this volume ends. Honestly, my favorite, I would have to give it like a solid 9.5 out of 10. I really enjoyed the pacing, especially the finale compared to the end of Volume 1. But I would love to know you guys' thoughts on this volume, on this issue. Let me know if you guys enjoyed it. If not, if you guys are looking forward to Volume 3. So that was all of the Transformer stories from Skybound and what they have done so far. Again, not counting Void Rivals because it's its own thing, but man, going back and reading Volume 1 and rereading Volume 2, yeah, I still think this is the best Transformers comics I've read so far. I know I haven't really tapped into the IDW side of things or Marvel, but dude, these first two volumes and what they've been able to do is just so freaking good. And I think you guys will see this video a little bit later, but at the time I was recording all of this is on Transformers Day, and what a great way to celebrate 40 years of Transformers than to read this new comic universe that brings in old ideas and new ones in a familiar looking tone, like the Energon Universe. And I asked you guys in the community post which volume is the best one, and I think for me personally it's still Volume 2, but that doesn't mean Volume 1 was bad by any means, because Volume 1 had to reintroduce some ideas to get the story going, whereas the story in Volume 2 really does just hit the ground running, and I just can't wait to see what Volume 3 cooks up. But if you guys made it to the end of the video, I thank you guys for watching this long movie of just all these videos, but more importantly, I thank you guys for watching my videos and sticking with the channel. It was scary when I switched up my content to comic related stuff, and to be completely honest, this has been the most fun I have ever had on YouTube when it comes to making videos, and I can't wait to continue this journey with you guys and talk more about comics, especially Transformers comics. But with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you're new and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Later.